Stationed locally, General Shichang joined forces with General Qin Zhenglin, who happened to be passing through Jingluo City, and launched a counterattack against the invading civilization. The Orc civilization suffered a devastating blow. The Beast Emperor has fallen. Two of our nation's generals have died heroically in battle. Starting today, flags across the Celestial Dynasty will be flown at half-mast for 3 days in silent tribute to our heroes. The broadcast came from the entrance of Nandu Central Hospital. I bit into a steamed bun and didn't move for a long while. So last night's spiritual energy surge hadn't been an accident after all. Another spatial rift had opened in southern Yu province. It's over. Something huge really happened. Sun Yuan sat across from me, his chubby face pale. Those were two generals, martial saint-level powerhouses, gone in a single night. If the Orc world is that fierce, what if they keep attacking? Quite a few people around us turned to look at him. Some frowned. Some had reddened eyes. I grabbed a soup dumpling and shoved it straight into Sun Yuan's mouth. Shut up. MMPH. Only then did he realize what he'd done and quickly lowered his head to eat. I looked outside the hospital. The sky was gray and gloomy. The flags along the street had already been lowered halfway. General Shichang had died in battle. General Qin Zhenglin had died in battle. Although the Celestial Dynasty had stopped the Orc civilization, there had already been 5 rifts within our borders. Now there was one more. The neighboring countries that had been watching us closely probably wouldn't stay quiet either. Let's go. I swallowed the last bite of my bun. Back to school. Is your body okay? Sun Yuan hurried after me. Today is the spirit awakening. What do you think? I'd waited 18 years for this. Even if I had to crawl, I would crawl onto the awakening platform. When we arrived at Nandu First High, Senior Class 1 was already in an uproar. Everyone was discussing last night's battle. I heard Jingluo City was almost breached. The 4th Spirit Martial Legion suffered heavy losses. Even 2 martial saints died. After we awaken, we won't be drafted immediately, right? I pushed the door open and walked in. No one paid any attention to us. As soon as I sat down, Sun Qian leaned over. "Chenong, how are you? What did the doctor say?" "I'm fine." Before I could finish, Sun Yuan cut in. The doctor said he was under too much pressure and his spiritual power was unstable. Then last night's spiritual energy surge hit, so he passed out. Sun Qian breathed a sigh of relief. "You scare me to death. I thought your old condition had acted up again." Last night, she had been dumped. As her older brother, Sun Yuan insisted on dragging her out to drink, saying something about drowning sorrow in alcohol. On the way, he also grabbed me, just as I was about to return to the orphanage. Halfway through drinking, the spiritual energy outside suddenly went berserk. Sun Yuan had been egging me on to perform a little whirlwind trick when my vision abruptly went black, and I collapsed on the spot. The siblings were nearly scared to death. "Don't worry." Sun Yuan patted my shoulder. "Angzi has endured all these years just to turn things around today. Forget fainting. Even if he really stopped breathing, he'd have to crawl back up and awaken his ability first. If you don't know how to talk, then talk less." Sun Qian kicked him. I smiled and didn't refute him. He was right. I was an abandoned baby and grew up in an orphanage. Because of my identity as an orphan, I was ostracized plenty. But the more they looked down on me, the more I wanted to climb upward. Preschool enlightenment, elementary cultural classes, martial arts fundamentals in middle and high school, spiritual energy absorption. I had always stayed ahead of my peers. They wanted to see me lower my head. I refused. The old director once told me, "When flowers are fragrant, butterflies come naturally." As long as I was strong enough, all that malice would become nothing more than a joke. Quiet. A gentle voice came from the doorway. The entire class instantly fell silent. Even Sun Yuan and Sun Qian, who had still been glaring at each other, immediately sat up straight. Our homeroom teacher, Su Chongqing, walked onto the platform. His hair was still combed meticulously, but fatigue and grief weighed beneath his eyes. He adjusted his glasses. "Today is Spirit Awakening Day. Starting today, you will awaken your own abilities and receive the spiritual power feedback that has accumulated in your bodies over the years." Everyone's breathing grew heavier. Su Chongqing swept his gaze across the class. "I'll say only one thing. No matter whether the abilities you awaken are strong or weak, no matter how far you can go in the future, do not forget that sharp blades still hang above our heads." Everyone, do not slack off." As soon as he finished speaking, the campus broadcast sounded. Nandu First High's Spirit Awakening Day officially begins. All senior students assemble on the field. 10 minutes later, 12 classes and over 1,000 students were all standing on the field. No one spoke. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the awakening platform at the center of the field. A crystal hovered above the platform, soft light flowing continuously across it. That was the awakening stone. It was also the first gate on our path of cultivation. Su Chongqing stood in front of Class 1's formation and spoke in a low voice. "You'd all better perform well later. Don't embarrass me." After saying that, he deliberately glared at me. "Especially you." I was the student he was most proud of. Before Spirit Awakening, the more spiritual energy one absorbed, the higher the chance of awakening a powerful ability. And my spiritual power reserves weren't just ranked first in Nandu First High. Across all of Southern U Province, I was among the very top. I secretly brought out the hand hidden behind my back and made a gesture towards Su Chongqing. "Don't worry, I'll definitely earn you plenty of face." Just then, a group of school leaders walked over from afar. I glanced at them and immediately noticed something was wrong. The principal was actually half a step behind. Walking at the very front was a middle-aged man in military uniform, his temples graying. I recognized him. Thunderlord Pei Chomping, an SS-Rank lightning-type ability user, Lieutenant General of the Celestial Dynasty, and Martial Emperor-level powerhouse. More importantly, he had once won 21 consecutive matches in an international arena against opponents of the same realm. Below Martial Saint level, he had almost never lost. "Is that General Pei?" Sun Yuan's voice was trembling. "It really is him. My idol." He was so excited that his chubby face flushed red and his body was nearly swaying. If not for formation discipline, he probably would have already rushed up to ask for a photo. The surroundings also began to stir. Pei Chongping stepped onto the speech platform and adjusted the microphone. He didn't smile. He only looked at us and remained silent for a few seconds. "My name is Pei Chongping. You should know me, so I won't waste words. Before the Spirit Awakening ceremony begins, I want to say one thing to all of you. I'm sorry." After saying that, he bent down and bowed to us. The entire field instantly erupted into disorder. The principal was also stunned and quickly raised his hand, signaling everyone to be quiet. Only after the commotion subsided did Pei Chongping speak again. "Today should have been the happiest day for you. I should have smiled and said a few words of encouragement, then watched you awaken your abilities. But I can't smile." His voice suddenly grew heavier. "Just last night, an outside civilization invaded my defense zone. My old leader, General Shi Chong, died in battle. General Chen Zhonglin, who was like both teacher and brother to me, perished together with the Beast Emperor. The 4th Spirit Martial Legion now has fewer than 20,000 soldiers left." Purple arcs of lightning exploded from his body. Crackle. The air around the speech platform trembled. The school leaders' expressions all changed. The principal was so anxious he stomped in place, his eyes conveying only one thought. What exactly is this living ancestor trying to do? We were still students. Yet he sounded as if he were addressing troops before battle. Pei Chongping clenched his fist and forcibly suppressed the thunder. "I'm not saying this to scare you. I want you to understand that ever since the spatial rifts appeared, those outside civilizations have rarely been willing to coexist peacefully with us. They want our land. They want our resources. And even more, they want our lives. 100 years ago, we could only passively take beatings. Countless cities were destroyed, and countless predecessors died in battle. Now, we can finally wrestle with them. But that is still not enough." He slammed his fist against his chest. "My stance has never changed. Whoever makes us bleed must pay an even more miserable price. We will all die, but there will always be those who come after us." Pei Chomping pointed at us. "Remember this. Everything you have today was bought with the lives of countless predecessors. If you awaken strong abilities, you are not allowed to be complacent. If you awaken weak abilities, you are not allowed to give up. All of you, train with your lives on the line." His gaze swept across the field like thunder. "I only hope that one day, when I die in battle, someone among you little brats will be able to put on a military uniform, stand before me, and tell me, 'Old man, die without worry. I'll take your burden from here.'" Boom. Spiritual power erupted from his body. Purple lightning shot straight into the sky, transforming into a 100-meter-long dragon that circled and roared above the field. The terrifying pressure made everyone's breath catch. But the next second, the spiritual power inside my body also began to boil. I hereby declare. Pei Chongping turned and looked at the half-lowered flag on the flag platform. Spirit Awakening Day begins. He struck his right fist against his chest, his voice shaking the entire campus. May the Celestial Dynasty prosper forever. I raised my hand and slammed it heavily against my chest. On the field, over 1,000 senior students made the same motion at once. Inside the teaching buildings, countless underclassmen also straightened their bodies. All voices converged together. May the Celestial Dynasty prosper forever. Boom. Thousands of streams of spiritual power surged into the sky at once, merging with the lightning dragon. The dragon raised its head and roared. It was as if the entire city of Nandu heard it. After the ceremony ended, the principal hurriedly went on stage and took the microphone. 2 staff members in standard uniforms stepped onto the awakening platform and placed their hands on the awakening stone at the same time. Spiritual power was injected. Buzz. The awakening stone rippled outward in circles, and multicolored light instantly enveloped the high platform. The grade director picked up the name list. Senior Class 2, Zhang Wei. Here. A crew-cut boy strode out. In the late autumn weather, he wore only a short-sleeved shirt, his muscles stretching the fabric taut. The principal smiled and introduced him to Pei Chongping. General Pei, this child's estimated potential is very high. He's one of the top students in our school's second tier. Pei Chongping responded only once. Zhang Wei walked onto the awakening platform, clearly a little nervous. A staff member patted the awakening stone. Place your hands on it. Focus your mind. Don't resist. Your heart will tell you which path to take. Zhang Wei gritted his teeth and nodded, then pressed both hands onto it. Buzz. His body trembled violently. Rock rapidly grew from his arms and covered his entire body in the blink of an eye. He looked as if he had turned into a stone statue. The 2 staff members closed their eyes and activated their detection abilities. Several seconds later, they withdrew their hands at the same time. A rank Earth type, Rock class ability. B+, rank talent, stubborn. A wave of low exclamations immediately rose from the field. The very first one was A rank. An auspicious start. A trace of a smile finally appeared on Pei Chongping's face. The principal smiled as well, but didn't dare brag right away. If the students afterward performed poorly, then however loudly he boasted now would be how hard he got slapped in the face later. Next, Senior Class 2, Zhang Peng. Here, one student after another stepped onto the platform. Light burst forth again and again as abilities awakened one after another. Outside the school, the place was also packed with people. Whenever a high-ranked ability was announced from inside, cheers would erupt outside as well. From early morning, it continued all the way until sunset. Finally, it was our Class 1's turn. Senior Class 1, Sun Qian. Sun Qian stood in the formation, her head nodding bit by bit. She was actually about to fall asleep. Sun Yuan's face darkened, and he kicked the back of her shoe. They're calling you. Huh? Sun Qian suddenly startled awake. Here. She hurriedly ran up to the awakening platform. The corner of my mouth twitched. Being able to sleep standing up during the spirit awakening ceremony. That counted as a kind of skill too. Sun Qian pressed her hand onto the awakening stone. The next second, screech. A piercing cry tore through the sky. Cyan light erupted from her body, and the phantom of a divine bird with a cyan body, crimson markings, and eyes like gold shot into the heavens. A violent wind swept across the field. Everyone was alarmed. Someone cursed on the spot. There was even a student who had awakened a canine beastification ability whose emotions collapsed completely. He pointed at the cyan lawn in the sky, his face full of disbelief and indignation. Why? We're both beastification type. She's a divine bird, and I'm a dog. Is that reasonable? I had been absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy the entire time, but now I was forcibly awakened as well. When I looked at Sun Qian on the platform again, I nearly didn't recognize her. Her features hadn't changed much, but her entire temperament was completely different. Cold. Noble. She was utterly unlike the silly girl who had been dozing off while standing just moments ago. I nudged Sun Yuan beside me, who was already staring blankly. Fatty, what did you awaken just now? Sun Yuan answered with a wooden expression. S-rank metal type ability. S-rank talent. Tear. Pretty strong. Strong my ass. He looked at the awakening platform, his voice hollow. I thought that from now on, I could finally establish some older brother authority in front of her. I patted his shoulder. My condolences. On the platform, the two staff members opened their eyes. They exchanged a glance, both seeing shock in each other's eyes. SSS-Rank beastification type ability. One of them paused, his expression somewhat awkward. Talent, unable to identify. Temporarily pending. The entire field exploded. The principal was so excited he nearly jumped up. Pei Chongping, however, sat very steadily. He turned his head slightly, his tone calm. Report it to headquarters. Request a martial venerable level identification ability user to immediately head to the 4th Spirit Martial Legion. Yes, sir. The recorder's hand was trembling. The principal looked at Pei Chongping's unruffled face, eyes full of admiration. As expected of the Thunder Lord. Even with an SSR rank ability right before him, he could still remain so calm. But I could see clearly. Pei Chongping's hand behind his back was also trembling lightly. He was just as excited. He was only good at pretending. After the ceremony ends, I'll personally take this girl to Shangjing. Pei Chongping looked at Sun Qian. Her family must be relocated as well to prevent enemy nations and foreign races from making a move. The principal nodded repeatedly. An SSR rank beastification ability. There were only a handful in the entire Celestial Dynasty. Once such a genius grew up, she would become a trump card capable of suppressing an entire region. Sun Qian was still standing on the awakening platform, frantically absorbing the spiritual power feedback after awakening. But Pei Chongping suddenly turned his head and looked toward our Class 1 formation. To be precise, he was looking at me. I frowned. Did this Lieutenant General know me? But he soon withdrew his gaze. Continue. The results that followed likewise did not disappoint. Zhang Shuyang, a rank fire type ability. A+, rank talent, blazing flame. Lu Qingxue, a rank water type, ice class ability. S-rank talent, extreme cold. Class 1 students kept stepping forward. The lowest ability rank was A. Pei Chongping nodded again and again. The principal, however, gradually became harder to satisfy. No helping it. With Sun Qian's SSR rank jewel already before them, the excitement brought by A ranks was indeed much weaker. Until Qian Shul stepped onto the platform. He pressed his hand onto the awakening stone. An invisible wave instantly swept across the field. Many people stiffened, their eyes briefly becoming vacant. The two staff members abruptly opened their eyes. Qian Shul, SS rank spiritual type, mind control class ability. SSR rank talent, deprivation. The entire field first fell silent. Then, it completely boiled over. This time, the principal truly couldn't hold back and jumped on the spot. It's settled. This year's first place in U Province still belongs to Nandu First High. Pei Chongping took a deep breath, excitement already impossible to conceal in his eyes. 1 SSR rank ability. 1 SSR rank talent. This trip to Nandu had brought him treasure. But it wasn't over yet. Pei Chongping walked to the grade director's side and directly took the name list. Only one name remained on the list. He raised his head and looked at me. At that moment, his gaze was even hotter than when he had looked at Sun Qian and Qian Shul. Qian Shul came down from the awakening platform and raised his fist toward me. Brother Ong, good luck. I bumped fists with him. Everyone in Nandu First High knew that I was the true seed of Class 1. I was also the person with the highest spiritual power reserves in the entire school. Pei Chongping gripped the list tightly and personally stepped up to the microphone. Senior Class 1. Chenong. Here. I stepped out of the formation. Everyone's gaze landed on me at once. Senior Class 1. Chenong. Here. I stepped out of the formation. The next second, the entire Nandu First High erupted. Chenong. 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 The cheers rose wave after wave. Everyone was shouting my name. I had wanted to smile, but my body trembled beyond my control. I had waited too long for this day. I had sharpened my sword for over 10 years, all for the moment it left its sheath today. This scene had appeared countless times in my dreams as well. I had even planned in advance how I would walk onto the platform, what expression I would wear after awakening, and what I would say. But when this moment truly came, I realized all those preparations were nonsense. Excitement was excitement. There was no suppressing it. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calmly walk toward the awakening platform. On the viewing platform, Pei Chongping stared fixedly at me. Su Chongqing stood in front of the formation, his fists already clenched. The gazes of the entire field moved with me. With every step I took, the cheers rose even higher. Finally, I climbed onto the awakening platform. The staff member smiled at me. Place both hands on it. Don't be nervous. Okay. I pressed both hands onto the awakening crystal. Buzz. The crystal trembled lightly. Everyone fell silent at once. 1 breath. 10 breaths. 20 breaths. The crystal still did not burst with the light that symbolized an ability. Instead, it trembled more and more violently. Buzz. A piercing vibration spread across the field. 50 breaths passed, and I still had not awakened. Discussions were already breaking out below the platform. Why is it taking so long? Could his ability be too powerful for the awakening crystal to detect? Wait a little longer. Brother Ong is definitely holding back something huge. Just then, crack. A crisp sound clearly entered everyone's ears. My eyes were still closed. But below the platform, complete chaos broke out. What was that sound? Did the awakening crystal crack? Seriously? Someone lost control and cursed outright. The 2 staff members opened their eyes at the same time. When they saw the crack on the awakening crystal, their expressions changed instantly. How is this possible? Not good. One of them reacted extremely quickly. He grabbed me, turned, and ran. The next second, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky. Thunder Prison. Pei Chomping instantly appeared above the awakening platform. He pressed his right hand downward, and purple lightning expanded with a roar, transforming into a massive cage that sealed off the entire platform. Crack! Crack! The cracks on the crystal spread wildly. Boom! The awakening crystal exploded on the spot. Violent spiritual power slammed fiercely against the thunder prison. Purple arcs of electricity shattered continuously, shaking the entire field. Several seconds later, the spiritual power finally dissipated. Everyone was dumbfounded. The awakening crystal exploded? That thing could actually explode? Even the staff responsible for awakening had never seen it before, let alone the students. Amid the chaos, Pei Chongping rose into the air. Lock down Nandu first high. Until the order is lifted, no one may enter or leave. As his voice fell, the crowd watching from outside the school had yet to react when powerful spiritual energy erupted one after another among them. 1, 10, over 100. Those seemingly ordinary passers-by sealed off the surrounding area of the school in an instant. The 4th Spirit Martial Legion is temporarily taking over law enforcement authority within a 5-kilometer radius of Nandu First High. All unrelated personnel, evacuate immediately. The onlookers were rapidly dispersed. Only then did I understand. How could Pei Chongping, the commander of a legion, possibly travel with only the few people visible on the surface? Pei Chongping landed back on the awakening platform and issued one order after another. Contact Nandu's Resource Reserve Department. Retrieve the highest grade awakening crystal. Contact headquarters again. The Martial Venerable Level Identification ability user no longer needs to go to the 4th Spirit Martial Legion. Have them come directly to Nandu First High. Yes, sir. In less than a minute, the entire school was placed under complete martial law. The students below the platform, however, were utterly excited. That's Brother Ong for you. Other people awaken abilities. He just shattered the awakening crystal. Could his ability be so powerful that an ordinary crystal couldn't withstand it? Do you even need to ask? Definitely. Listening to those discussions, a flame also ignited in my heart. Could my ability really be so powerful that an ordinary crystal couldn't withstand it? I knew it. After holding back for 18 years, there was no way it would end with only a bang. But this wait lasted several hours. The setting sun sank. Night descended. I sat in the principal's office, feeling completely numb. Sitting in front of me were Pei Chongping, the principal, the grade director, and several military personnel. After they brought me in, aside from asking whether I felt any discomfort, no one said another word. They simply stared at me. From daylight until dark, I sat upright and tried hard to maintain my composure. But Pei Changping's gaze was like radar, sweeping back and forth across my face. Finally, I couldn't hold back anymore. Chief, why don't you ask me something? No one spoke. Then should I pour everyone a glass of water? Still no one spoke. The oppressive atmosphere made my scalp tingle. Just as I was preparing to speak for the third time, a knock finally sounded outside the door. Knock, knock, knock. A non-commissioned officer pushed the door open, entered, stood at attention, and reported. Report. The highest grade awakening crystal has been delivered. All preparations are complete. Pei Changping finally moved his gaze away. Let's go. He rose first and walked outside. Everyone else in the office let out a breath in unison. I also slowly exhaled. If they had kept staring like that, I would have started suspecting they weren't waiting for the awakening crystal, but considering where to cut me open for research. We returned to the field. The awakening platform that had been destroyed had already been rebuilt. A purple crystal hovered in midair, radiating a deep glow. The staff members previously responsible for awakening had been replaced. Standing on the platform now were two middle-aged men in their 40s or 50s. They wore matching uniforms, stood tall and straight, and possessed deep, profound auras. Martial, venerable-level powerhouses. Not far away, within the darkness, several faint auras were also hidden. Pei Changping swept his gaze around, the corner of his mouth rising slightly. What? Are you afraid I can't protect this kid? No one answered. Pei Changping didn't continue asking either and turned toward the awakening platform. Can we begin? The two martial venerables nodded at the same time. Yes. Pei Changping beckoned to me. Chenong, go up. I didn't waste words and immediately stepped forward. I could no longer wait. However, after what happened the first time, I did feel somewhat uneasy. This crystal wouldn't have another accident too, right? I stepped onto the awakening platform and looked at the purple crystal before me. Begin when you're ready. Okay. I raised both hands and slowly pressed them onto it. Buzz. The instant I touched the crystal, purple light surged violently. The entirety of Nandu First High was instantly swallowed by purple radiance. All teachers and students were dazzled so badly they couldn't open their eyes. The intense light even crossed the school walls and rushed several kilometers away. In a small courtyard nearby, a 7 or 8-year-old child hugged a phone and stared blankly at the sky illuminated by purple light. He turned to look at his father. Dad, do you believe in light? At that moment in Nandu First High, however, no one had the time to answer that question. The purple light lasted for over 10 minutes. Finally, the radiance began to fade. My figure reappeared on the awakening platform. Crack. That familiar sound rang out again. Everyone's expressions froze. Crack, crack. Cracks crawled across the purple crystal. In the end, the entire crystal fell from midair and smashed onto the ground. It had shattered again. Fortunately, this time it didn't explode. Lightning flashed. Pei Changping instantly appeared on the awakening platform. He lowered his head and looked at the highest grade awakening crystal covered in cracks. He sharply inhaled, then turned to the two martial venerables. What ability? The martial venerable responsible for detection was pale, his teeth chattering. Qingdi. How could it be Qingdi? Pei Changping's pupils contracted. The field fell into dead silence. Across all of Blue Star, there were no more than 10 SSS-Rank abilities in total. Every SSS-Rank ability possessed its own unique title. Qingdi was one of them. Strictly speaking, Qingdi belonged to the wood-type category. It possessed powerful restorative capabilities. The previous owner of Qingdi was precisely Qin Zhonglin. Among the Celestial Dynasty's 8 generals, he was one of those with the most illustrious military achievements. As long as Qin Zhonglin still stood on the battlefield, Allied soldiers found it very difficult to truly die. Even if someone had only a single breath left, he dared to drag them back from the edge of death. Enemies all said he wasn't saving people. He was snatching people right in front of death itself, and after snatching them away, he would point at death's face and unleash an extremely aggressive barrage of curses, making it too afraid to approach another half-step. But the problem was, Qin Zhonglin had only just died in battle, and Qingdi had already chosen a new master so quickly? Good. After a brief daze, wild joy erupted in Pei Changping's eyes. Good. He said the word good 3 times. But the other martial venerable responsible for identifying talents had an increasingly strange expression. Several times, he opened his mouth, only to swallow his words back down. Wait, this result isn't right. Pei Chongping immediately looked at him. What's wrong? If you have something to say it. That martial venerable stared at me, his tone filled with suspicion. His talent is different from General Chen's. Pei Chongping's expression changed. It isn't flourishing growth? Then what is it? The martial venerable took a deep breath and finally announced the result. Tyrant. SSS-Rank main combat talent, Tyrant. As his voice fell, the entire field sank into deathly silence. Qingdi was the highest grade restorative ability. Tyrant, however, was the highest grade main combat talent. One saved lives. One slaughtered enemies. These two things had actually appeared on me at the same time. Ahem. A suppressed cough suddenly came from above the field. Clearly, some hidden powerhouse in the dark had also been shocked by this combination and failed to control themselves for a moment. But before everyone could digest this result, the surrounding spiritual energy suddenly went berserk. Whoosh! A massive amount of spiritual energy converged toward the awakening platform. In the blink of an eye, it formed a huge vortex, and I stood at the center of that vortex. At this moment, I couldn't hear the outside world at all. As the awakening crystal shattered, the spiritual power that had accumulated in my body over the years was finally fully triggered. Spiritual power surged from my limbs and bones toward my abdomen. In just a few seconds, 6 chi vortexes condensed near my dantian. 6-stage martial warrior. Foreign countries called it Black Iron 6-star. But I still felt that 6-stage martial warrior sounded better. Feeling the surging power inside me, I had only one thought. Not enough. Far from enough. I had trained bitterly for so many years, always pressing my peers behind me. Now that I had finally drawn my sword from its sheath, I only reached 6-stage martial warrior? What kind of joke was that? The Celestial Dynasty's Spirit Awakening record was entering the 9th-stage martial warrior realm immediately after awakening. The record holder was now already a general, commanding an army and guarding the spatial rift in Jiang Province. He was a genius. So was I? Why should my potential be beneath his? Open. I let out a low roar. The remaining spiritual power surged toward my dantian at the same time. The 7th chi vortex condensed. The 8th chi vortex condensed. The 9th chi vortex formed. 9 chi vortexes revolved rapidly around my dantian. I had already tied the record, but I still didn't stop. 9th-stage martial warrior was not the end. As long as I merged the 9 chi vortexes into my dantian and transformed my spiritual power from gas into liquid, I could cross the martial warrior realm and directly enter martial master. The 9 chi vortexes began contracting inward. Boom. The vortexes collided with one another. Strands of spiritual power continuously merged into my dantian. Almost there. Just one final bit. But at that exact moment, the spiritual power accumulated inside my body was completely exhausted. Without follow-up spiritual power, the fusion speed of the 9 chi vortexes abruptly slowed, and there were even faint signs of collapse. My heart hardened. Others might stop here. I wouldn't. I'm as stubborn as a donkey. The more something blocks me, the more I have to ram forward. I directly circulated the spiritual energy absorption method taught by the school, forcibly absorbing the external spiritual energy. And so, the spiritual energy on the field went completely berserk. This kid, Pei Chongping, abruptly raised his head. With his cultivation level, he could naturally tell what I was doing. He's attempting to break through to martial master. He just awakened, and without any preparation, he dares to cross a major realm? Is he insane? Pei Chongping took a step forward, then forcibly stopped himself. The greatest taboo during a martial artist breakthrough was interference from outsiders. If he approached rashly, the surrounding spiritual energy could be pulled along and very likely backlash against me on the spot. The 2 martial venerables also didn't dare move recklessly. One of them stared fixedly at me, cold sweat already seeping from his forehead. Too risky. If the spiritual energy reverses, his foundation will be destroyed. A voice suddenly came from the void. He just awakened, yet he wants to break through directly to martial master. This little guy's guts are even bigger than his father's. A man in a Zhongshan suit walked out from the night. Just standing there, the pressure of a superior enveloped the entire field. Pei Chongping glanced at him. Inspector Sui. The newcomer was Sui Hong, one of the Celestial Dynasty's 34 inspectors and the chief official in charge of Yu Province. When the school leaders on the viewing platform saw him, they hurriedly ran over. Inspector Sui. The principal stood nearby, so nervous his forehead was covered in sweat. These were major figures one normally couldn't even hope to meet. Yet today they had all gathered at Nandu First High. Since when did his school have such prestige? Pei Chongping had no interest in pleasantries. Is there a way to help him? Sui Hong glanced at me and shook his head. No. A spiritual cultivator's breakthrough can only depend on oneself. Any outside force that intervenes rashly may backfire. So-called breakthrough-type heavenly treasures merely provided assistance. The final threshold had to be crossed by the person breaking through. But asking a student who had just awakened to comprehend the martial master realm? That in itself was unrealistic. Just as everyone's expressions grew solemn, I suddenly threw my head back and roared. Ah! Agony swept through my entire body. My eyes turned bloodshot, and my skin split open. The originally gentle spiritual energy suddenly became incomparably violent, frantically tearing at my body. My clothes were instantly shredded by the spiritual energy. It was only because the surrounding spiritual energy was too dense that those outside temporarily couldn't see clearly. Something's wrong. Pei Chongping's expression changed drastically. He raised his hand, preparing to forcibly interrupt my breakthrough. Even if my foundation suffered damage, it would still be better than losing my life. But before he could act, the Qingdi ability inside me suddenly activated on its own. A cyan halo spread from my chest. My ruptured skin healed rapidly. My chaotic meridians were also forcibly stabilized by a gentle power. Pei Chongping's movements froze. Qingdi. This kid just awakened. Yet he can already actively trigger Qingdi? No one could answer him. Only I knew that in that instant, a name had naturally surfaced in my mind. Flourishing growth. That seemed to be Qingdi's innate ability. Endless vitality. All things flourish. I uttered 2 words. Flourishing growth. My voice was very soft. Even Pei Chongping, who was closest to me, failed to hear it clearly. But as those 2 words fell, the surrounding violent spiritual energy swiftly calmed. It was like a restless beast whose head I had pressed down with one hand. I opened my eyes. I still needed a little more spiritual power. Then come. I raised my head, my voice spreading across the field. Come. Whoosh. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth seemed to hear my summons. It no longer needed me to actively draw it in. Instead, it rushed toward my body, vying to enter. Fast. Too fast. Usually, when other people absorbed spiritual energy, they had to carefully guide it in, then refine it slowly. But now, this spiritual energy seemed afraid I wouldn't want it. It desperately burrowed into my body on its own. Everyone stared dumbfounded. Is this still spiritual energy? When we cultivate normally, why don't they ever listen this well? This isn't just listening. This is clearly trying to curry favor with Brother Ong. Spiritual energy surged into my dantian. The 9 chi vortexes that had been on the verge of collapse stabilized once more. The fusion continued. 80%, 90%, 100%. Boom. The 9 chi vortexes merged into my dantian at the same time. The originally intangible spiritual power compressed and condensed, finally transforming into a thicker liquid state power. The barrier of 9th-stage martial warrior shattered with a thunderous crash. A pressure far surpassing the martial warrior realm erupted from within me. I had succeeded. I opened my eyes, unable to suppress the excitement in my heart. From today onward, the Celestial Dynasty's Spirit Awakening record should have a new owner. I clenched both fists, my voice spreading across the entire campus. 9 vortexes return to 1. Spiritual energy becomes liquid. Martial Master, achieve. Boom. Spiritual power surged out again. The entire field was silent. He had just awakened, yet directly crossed the 9th-stage martial warrior realm and stepped into Martial Master. This had never happened in the history of the Celestial Dynasty. No, it had never happened in all of Blue Star. I felt the power rushing through my body and finally couldn't help placing my hands on my hips and laughing loudly. Genius? Sorry, I am one too. If you do not cultivate, then seeing me is like a frog at the bottom of a well gazing up at the bright moon in the sky. Even if one day you luckily step into the cultivation world, Looking at me would still be no more than a mayfly gazing up at the blue heavens. Satisfying. Too satisfying. But as I laughed, I suddenly sensed something was wrong. Why did the texture my palm touched feel so smooth? Was my school uniform this comfortable? I looked down. Silence. I must have been hallucinating after the breakthrough. I looked again. Ah. A miserable scream instantly resounded throughout Nandu First High. When the spiritual energy went berserk earlier, the clothes on my body had already been torn completely to shreds. After the breakthrough ended, all the surrounding spiritual energy had been absorbed by me. The cover was gone too. I panicked, first covering above, then realized that wasn't right and hurriedly covered below. Inside the teaching buildings, a group of students cried out at the same time. Whoa! Just now, they had been too busy being shocked and hadn't noticed that my clothes were gone. Now that they saw clearly, the girls in the corridors turned their heads one after another. Ah, stop looking. That was what they said. But the gaps between their fingers covering their eyes were wider than the last. Ahem. Pei Chongping coughed awkwardly twice. Clearly, he had also been too busy being shocked and had forgotten about this matter. Purple lightning instantly rose, transforming into a thunder prison that shielded me inside. Immediately afterward, he took out a set of clothes from his spatial ring and threw it to me. Hurry up and put them on. I caught the clothes with a dark expression. It was over. Completely over. I had imagined that I would astonish everyone with a single feat, but I had never imagined I would become famous in this way. Breakthrough equals peak. Becoming famous equals public social death. Not long after, I once again sat inside the principal's office. The clothes I wore belonged to Pei Chongping, and the size was clearly wrong. The sleeves were too long, and the pant legs were loose and baggy. I sat on the sofa, my eyes devoid of light. Why? Why had things become like this? I had imagined countless scenes of shocking everyone after Spirit Awakening. Every version had been very cool. Only this one. I had never imagined that after breaking the record, I would publicly lose my last shred of dignity. Pei Chongping sat across from me, his expression equally awkward. Chenong, don't be too upset. I've already had the principal issue a notice. What happened tonight is absolutely forbidden from being spread outside. I raised my head and looked at him. Swear it. Well, swear right now that it absolutely won't get out. Pei Chongping opened his mouth, then finally let out 2 dry laughs. More than 1,000 people in the school had seen it. Among them were plenty of students. Who would dare guarantee that not a single word of something like this would spread? The principal stood nearby and wanted to remind me to watch my attitude. But before he could speak, Pei Chongping waved his hand. Principal Gao, please step outside for a moment. There are some things I need to discuss with Chunong alone. The principal froze. Ah. Oh, all right. He turned and walked out of the office, closing the door behind him. Before leaving, that resentful look in his eyes seemed to say, "This is my office." The door closed. The atmosphere in the room instantly changed. All awkwardness disappeared from Pei Chongping's face, leaving only seriousness. I also sat up straight. From the very beginning, the way he looked at me had been off. After the first Spirit Awakening accident, he brought me into the office and stared at me silently for several hours. Before Inspector Sui Hong left, he even specially gave me his personal number, saying I could contact him if I encountered any trouble. I wasn't stupid. The Celestial Dynasty was never short of geniuses. Even if my talent was extremely strong, it shouldn't have been enough to make 2 major figures treat me so specially. There had to be another reason. Pei Chongping suddenly stood up. Chenong. I reflexively stood up, legs apart, hands behind my back, assuming a standard at-ease military posture. Here, all martial arts schools in the Celestial Dynasty operated under militarized management. Because from the day we entered martial arts school, we were no longer merely ordinary students. The nation invested resources to cultivate us. And after graduation, most of us would enter the military and join the major spirit martial legions. Obeying orders had long since been carved into our habits. Pei Chongping looked at me. His eyes actually reddened bit by bit. My heart sank violently. The next second, he spread open his palm. A severely damaged combat bracelet appeared in his hand. The surface of the bracelet was scorched black, its edges broken, and dried blood still stained it. I stared at that bracelet. Chief, this is a reward for me. But whose reward came in battle-damaged condition? Pei Changping remained silent for a long time before speaking with difficulty. This belonged to your father. My mind roared. Who? Your father? I was completely stunned. Father? Wasn't I an orphan? Where would I get a father from? Report, Chief. Is there some mistake? I'm an orphan. Pei Changping did not answer. He only looked at me. The seriousness in his eyes made my breathing grow faster and faster. Scene after scene flashed through my mind. From the start of the ceremony, he had glanced at me from time to time. After the first spirit awakening failed, he brought me into the office and stared at me silently. Inspector Sui Hong suddenly appeared and even voluntarily gave me his private number. These important people could not possibly have treated me differently for no reason. Could it be that my biological father had found me? And his status was extremely high. So high that even Pei Changping and Sui Hong were willing to give him face. But if that were true, why only now? Why let me stay in the orphanage for 18 years? Why had he never appeared when people pointed at my nose and called me an orphan? I had once imagined countless times. If my biological parents truly came to find me, I would definitely question them face to face. Why give birth to me, then abandon me? Since they didn't want me, why come back? Did they know how much mockery I had suffered all these years? How much hardship I had endured? But when this moment truly arrived, I discovered that all those prepared questions couldn't leave my mouth. Only confusion remained, and a trace of expectation I was unwilling to admit even to myself. Chief. My throat tightened. My father, who is he? Pei Changping looked into my eyes and spoke word by word. Chun Zhenglin. Your father is General Chun Zhenglin of the Celestial Dynasty, and he is also a hero of the Celestial Dynasty. My ears buzzed. Who? I suspected I had misheard. Pei Changping spoke again. Chun Zhenglin, commander of the Celestial Dynasty's 8th Spirit Martial Legion, the previous owner of the Qingdi ability. Your biological father. My body swayed. The broadcast from the morning suddenly rang in my mind. General Chun Zhenglin died in battle. Perished together with the Beast Emperor. Flags across the Celestial Dynasty lowered to half-mast for 3 days. So, my father had been found. But he was already dead. I hadn't even seen him before. Pei Changping placed the damaged combat bracelet on the table. This is his relic. Watch it. He did not continue speaking. Because he knew I had already heard the death announcement. My body trembled uncontrollably. I stared at the bracelet on the table, opened my mouth several times, yet could not make a sound. Expectation, anger, grievance, and that tiny bit of joy that had just emerged were all shattered completely at the same time. I finally knew I wasn't a child no one wanted. But the moment I learned who my father was, I had to accept news of his death. Pei Changping stretched out his hand and activated the combat bracelet with spiritual power. ZZZZT. The sound of electrical current rang out. A damaged virtual screen projected into the office. The image flickered continuously. A man appeared on the screen. His features were resolute, his brow bones sharp. A scar slashed diagonally down from his cheekbone, making him appear especially fierce. I had seen this face too many times. On television, on propaganda posters, on the school's hero ranking board. But I had never imagined that he would be my father. In the image, Chun Zhenglin frowned deeply. His military uniform was already torn apart, and his chest was covered in blood. There was no fear in his eyes, only the resolve to die. I am Chun Zhenglin, commander of the Celestial Dynasty's 8th Spirit Martial Legion. I am currently inside the newly emerged spatial rift in Yu Province. According to existing intelligence, the invading race is the Orc civilization. Danger level, Black, the highest level. The enemy's strongest combatant is suspected to be martial god level. General Shi Chong has already been severely wounded by the enemy leader. I am also injured. The image shook violently. Thunderous booms kept coming from the distance. Chun Zhenglin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his voice not wavering in the slightest. We can no longer withdraw. Next, I will join forces with General Shi Chong and do everything in our power to eliminate the enemy leader. As for the follow-up battle plan, I issue the following orders. The 4th Spirit Martial Legion stationed in Jingluo City is to commit all forces and seal off the spatial rift. No matter the cost, the safety of the civilians in the rear must be guaranteed. The official in charge of Jingluo City is to immediately mobilize all spiritual cultivators in the city, evacuate the masses, and withdraw all unrelated personnel. All station legions within Yu province are to march light and reinforce Jingluo. At this point, he suddenly raised his head. Terrifying killing intent erupted in his eyes. Drive these invaders back where they came from. ZZZZT. The combat bracelet flickered continuously. The image could vanish at any moment. I stared fixedly at the man on the screen. He knew he was going to die. Yet in his final moment, what he still thought of was blocking the rift and protecting those behind him. Inside the office, only the chaotic sound of electrical current remained. Pei Changping's voice had already become choked. What you just watched was the warning and battle deployment your father and General Shi Chang transmitted back to headquarters after they entered the Orc civilization and discovered something was wrong. He paused, clenching his fist. The next part was left for you. I stood where I was, staring at the man on the screen. Qin Zhenglin, General of the Celestial Dynasty. The previous Qingdi, and also my father. Those identities struck my mind like heavy punches. Did it hurt? It should have. But in my 18 years of memory, he had not existed. When people called me an orphan, he wasn't there. When I waited in the orphanage for someone to adopt me, he wasn't there. When I first practiced martial arts, first got injured, first placed first in the entire school, he also wasn't there. I didn't even know what identity I should use to cry. A son? Or a stranger who had just learned the truth? Just as my mind became a tangled mess, the combat bracelet emitted another burst of electrical noise. The image changed. Qin Zhenglin, who had just been full of deathly resolve, suddenly grinned. All right, now that official business is done, it's time to talk about my funeral arrangements. He raised a hand and pointed at the combat bracelet. This recording is to be intercepted by headquarters. Don't distribute it downward. After saying that, he fell silent for 2 seconds. When he raised his head again, the killing intent in his eyes had faded. In its place was a softness I had never seen in any promotional video. Head of state, you asked me before why I suddenly requested leave. It's because I found my son. My breath suddenly stopped. Qin Zhenglin smiled on the screen, but his eyes quickly reddened. My child with Xiaofeng is still alive. When the little guy was born, it happened to coincide with the invasion of the arcane civilization. At that time, he was on the front line. It's my fault. The smile on his face disappeared. I was useless. I couldn't protect the two of them. I personally watched Xiaofeng die in front of me, and I personally watched my child get swept into a spatial rift. But I couldn't do anything. Qin Zhenglin lowered his head, his fists slowly clenching. The young soldiers in the military always call me some kind of war god. They say I suppressed an entire civilization with a single legion. But only I know. I am a coward. All these years, I led troops into one foreign race's world after another. I killed nonstop, killed with everything I had. I thought that as long as I killed enough, I could suppress the regret in my heart. But I couldn't. It's been more than 10 years. Every day, I regret it. I keep thinking, why did I have to shout that line about defending to the death and never retreating? His voice grew lower and lower. In this life, I have been worthy of the Celestial Dynasty, worthy of the people behind me, and worthy of the brothers who followed me through life and death. The only ones I wronged were Xiaofeng. And that child. I stared fixedly at the screen. The man who never retreated on the battlefield called himself a coward. The next second, he suddenly laughed loudly. But at least heaven didn't block off every road for me. Some days ago, when the war situation eased, I granted family leave to those little brats under me. One of them was from Nandu City. That kid's ability is very special. He can detect bloodline affinity. With this ability, he killed plenty of enemy direct descendants on the arcane civilization battlefield. He fought hard enough that I personally commended him several times. When his family leave ended and he returned, he brought me earth-shattering news. Qin Zhenglin looked at the camera. His eyes were frighteningly bright. In Nandu City, he met a young man with extremely high bloodline affinity to me. Head of state, do you know what I felt when I heard that news? I nearly rushed back to Nandu on the spot. But I didn't dare. I was afraid it was false. Even more afraid it would be joy for nothing. So I forcibly suppressed it. I sent people to investigate that child's age, background, and the time he was sent to the orphanage back then. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. All of it matched. The age matched. The origin matched. The bloodline matched too. He is my son. My and Xiaofeng's child is really still alive. I opened my mouth, but it was as if an invisible hand had seized my throat, preventing even a single word from coming out. So he hadn't never looked for me. So he had only just found me. So that time he requested leave, it was because he wanted to come back and see me. But he never got the chance. The screen suddenly shook violently. Immediately after, a heaven-shaking roar came from the distance. Roar. A massive dragon-shaped creature shot into the sky. Most of its dragon scales had already fallen off, and blood scattered all along its path, dyeing the sky red. The combat bracelet suffered an impact from the force, causing the projected image to begin distorting. The giant dragon flipped in midair, then smashed downward toward that terrifying black shadow. At the same time, a rough voice resounded across the battlefield. "Old Chun, give me a mouthful. I can't hold much longer. I can still stall it for 3 minutes." The giant dragon dove down. Boom. The battlefield exploded again. No need for 3 minutes. Chun Zhenglin suddenly turned and thrust out a palm. Boundless cyan light erupted from his palm, crossed the battlefield, and instantly wrapped around the heavily wounded giant dragon. Broken dragon scales regrew. Torn flesh rapidly healed. The giant dragon's aura surged again. Qin Zhenglin raised one finger. 1 minute. Give me 1 more minute. After saying that, he looked back at the combat bracelet. Head of state. Old Sure, and I probably won't be able to return. Remember to erect a monument for us. Make it big. Make it imposing. Old Sure is a face-loving guy. If the monument is too small, even after dying he'll throw a tantrum down below and chase after me to argue. The giant dragon's roar sounded again in the distance. The smile on Chun Jinglin's face slowly vanished. Lastly, I ask you for one more thing. I've already sent that child's identity information to you. If possible, I hope you can look after him a little in the future. He has already suffered too much over the years. At this point, he suddenly straightened his body. His gaze became stern as well. Kid, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. I subconsciously stood straighter. Even though I knew it was only a recording, that kid still made my body instinctively tense. Qin Zhenglin stared into the camera. I don't care how high your talent is, nor do I care how capable you become in the future. Even if you have no cultivation talent and only want to muddle through life eating and waiting to die, the merits your mother and I left behind are enough to guarantee you a lifetime without worrying about food or clothing. But there is one rule. If you dare bully others by relying on power, dare commit crimes, dare point your fists at your own people, I'll be the first to refuse. He raised his hand and tapped at the camera. But as long as you're in the right, as long as you've done nothing wrong. In the Celestial Dynasty, no one can force you to lower your head. Whoever dares bully you, hit them back. If you can't beat them, use my name. This is the final confidence your father leaves you. His tone suddenly paused. The sternness in his eyes scattered. This man who had not lowered his head, even before a martial god-level enemy, actually began to tremble in his voice. Finally, your father is sorry. He looked into the camera and smiled softly. Son, your dad and your mom both love you very much. My vision blurred instantly. Before I could clearly see his expression, Chun Zhenglin had already turned around. At that moment, all softness in his eyes disappeared completely. Towering killing intent erupted with a boom. He took off the combat bracelet and casually threw it onto the ground. The image tilted. On the screen, only his back remained. Boom. Cyan light filled the sky and shot upward. The battlefield was completely illuminated. Qin Zhenglin stepped forward and charged at the black shadow blotting out the heavens. In the distance, the giant dragon also roared and rushed back. Old Chun, I'm here. If this beast wants to enter Blue Star, it can crawl over my corpse first. Qin Zhenglin laughed loudly. Then let's kill it. Boom, boom, boom. The entire world trembled. The cyan light extinguished again and again, then erupted again and again. The giant dragon's roars also grew weaker and weaker. But those two figures never retreated. Several minutes later, two furious roars resounded across the battlefield at the same time. May the Celestial Dynasty prosper forever. May the Celestial Dynasty prosper forever. The next second, white light devoured everything. The screen instantly lost its image. I couldn't see anything anymore. I could only hear continuous rumbling. After an unknown amount of time, The image finally stabilized again. The battlefield had already fallen silent. The earth was split open. Mountains and rivers were shattered. As far as the eye could see, there was no sign of life left. No cyan light, no giant dragon, and no Qinzhenglin. After a long while, a blood-covered hand suddenly reached into the image and grabbed the combat bracelet. A spirit martial soldier appeared on the screen. He was covered in blood, and only numbness remained on his face. But when he saw clearly what he held in his hand, his eyes reddened instantly. He suddenly turned and shouted into the distance. "Found it! It's General Qin's combat bracelet. Notify General Pei immediately." ZZZZT. The recording ended there. The office sank back into darkness. I didn't know how long I sat there. When I finally came back to my senses, Pei Chongping had already left. The combat bracelet on the table no longer flickered. I sat alone in the chair. That sentence repeated endlessly in my mind. "Son, your dad and your mom both love you very much." I lowered my head and forcefully wiped my face. My palm was wet. What the hell? Making someone cry the first time we meet. I cursed under my breath. But my voice was so hoarse that even I could barely hear it. Outside the window, the night was still deep and dark. The lights scattered across the campus were sparse, like stars hanging in the night sky. I braced myself against the desk and stood. Phew. I exhaled, but the boulder pressing against my chest did not completely disappear. Some things had weighed there for 18 years. They weren't so easy to set down. I picked up the combat bracelet on the desk and pushed open the office door. Pei Chongping was standing in the corridor. He leaned against the wall and had never left. He glanced at me. "Recovered. Don't blame your father." "I used to." I interrupted him. Pei Chongping fell silent. I gripped the combat bracelet tightly and smiled at him. "Now I don't. My father was a hero." "You said that." Pei Chongping straightened. "Not just me. The entire Celestial Dynasty believes he was a hero." "Then that's enough." I turned to look toward the dark field. What he did had meaning. He protected what he wanted to protect. It was worth it. Pei Chongping looked at me, his lips moving several times. He clearly wanted to comfort me. But if this Legion commander were sent onto the battlefield to kill enemies, he would never retreat a single step. Asking him to coax someone. However, he probably couldn't force out more than a few soft words, even if he suffocated himself. I didn't make things difficult for him. "General Pei, can you tell me about my mother? I've heard many stories about my father since I was young. But my mother..." I paused. "I don't even know her name." Pei Chongping sat down at the office entrance. "Xiaofeng. Her real name was Shun Fengyi. She was your father's adjutant, and also one of the strongest space-type spiritual cultivators on the arcane civilization battlefield back then." I sat beside him. "And then?" Pei Chongping smiled. "The first time your father met your mother, he told her to use her spatial ability to bring the enemy commander over. Did my mom agree?" "No. She told your father to roll over there and catch him himself." I froze. "That fierce. Your father liked fierce ones. What happened after that?" "After that, your father really charged in. Alone, he broke through 3 defensive lines and dragged the enemy commander back. When he returned, he threw the man in front of your mother and said one sentence." "What?" Pei Chongping mimicked Chen Jinglin's tone from back then. "The man, I brought him back. Now can we date?" I couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. "Did my mom agree?" "She slapped him." "Then how did they end up together?" "After your father took the slap, he asked again the next day." "How long did he ask?" "Half a year." Truly shameless. In that regard, he really had no shame. We sat at the office entrance. He spoke. I listened. He told me that the first time my mother went onto a battlefield, she was so nervous that she teleported to the wrong place and nearly sent Chen Zhenglin straight into the enemy's main camp. He also said that later, she held up a spatial passage alone and rescued an entire army trapped in encirclement. He said my mother had a fierce temper. He also said that before every expedition, she would secretly check Chen Jinglin's combat equipment. Sentence by sentence. The 2 people who had never appeared in my memories finally became clear. After an unknown amount of time, a smear of red light tore open the darkness. Dawn had arrived. I stood up and patted the dust off my pants. "Thank you." Pei Chongping also stood. "No need." "There is." I glanced outside the school. "As thanks, I'll treat you to breakfast." "What are we eating?" "My favorite." A dozen minutes later, We sat inside a nearby restaurant called One Bowl Full Who Spicy Soup. One large bowl of who spicy soup each, plus 2 small fried dough sticks. At first, Pei Chongping still maintained the airs of a lieutenant general, but after drinking 2 mouthfuls, his speed noticeably increased. Finally, he lifted the bowl and finished it directly. Burp. He put down the bowl and let out a comfortable belch. Not bad. Of course. I rubbed my stomach. I've eaten here since I was little. The taste can't be bad. Pei Chongping pulled out a toothpick. Thank you for breakfast. In return, I'll give you a gift as well. So polite. He took out a triangular card from his pocket and pushed it in front of me. The entire card was pitch black, its edges glowing with dark golden light. On the front were only 2 words. Heavenly Stratagem. I picked it up and flipped it over. What is this? An admission letter for Heavenly Stratagem Academy. My mouth opened slightly. The toothpick fell to the ground with a clatter. Heavenly Stratagem Academy. That's right. That place. What? Pei Chongping leisurely picked his teeth, clearly very satisfied with my reaction. I took a deep breath and carefully pinched the card. What is Heavenly Stratagem Academy? Pei Chongping's hand trembled. The toothpick nearly stabbed into his gums. He stared at me. You don't know? I don't. Then why were you shocked just now? It sounded really impressive. Pei Chongping fell silent. I looked at him. He looked at me. Finally, he threw the toothpick into the trash can. Fine. I'll explain it to you. Heavenly Stratagem Academy was considered a martial arts university, yet it was entirely different from ordinary martial arts universities. It was directly governed by the Celestial Dynasty. The Academy's nominal principal was the supreme leader of the Celestial Dynasty. Those who could enter were all genuine disciples of the highest order. Even more extreme, Heavenly Stratagem Academy never conducted public admissions. There were no college entrance exam applications, no independent registration. Every class of students was personally recommended by regional inspectors and high-ranking legion commanders. To put it bluntly, that place was a concentration camp for geniuses. Ordinary so-called geniuses couldn't even touch the gate. Pei Chongping drank a sip of tea. That classmate of yours, Sun Qian, also has decent talent. I've already reported it to headquarters. If nothing unexpected happens, she'll receive an admission letter too. What about Qian Shul? I immediately asked. He had awakened an SSS-Rank mind control ability, and his talent was even SSR-Rank deprivation. With that kind of configuration, he shouldn't be unable to enter Heavenly Stratagem Academy. Pei Chongping's hand paused. His situation is somewhat complicated. His family background review hasn't passed for now. I frowned. Because of his family? Some matters are still under investigation. Before the results come out, I can't tell you. Understood. I did not continue asking. Pei Chongping looked at me again. Well, will you go? I will. I didn't hesitate at all. A genius concentration camp? Perfect. Over the years, I had seen plenty of so-called geniuses. But in the end, all of them said I was the genius. Nandu City was too small. Yu Province also wasn't big enough. I really wanted to see what level the most outstanding young people in the entire Celestial Dynasty were at. Even more, I wanted to know, could they take a beating? Good. Pei Chongping nodded. I'll give you 3 days. Settle your affairs in Nandu City. 3 days later, someone will come pick you up. At this point, his expression became a little more serious. One more thing. What you hold is only an admission letter. It does not mean you are already a student of Heavenly Stratagem Academy. Before enrollment, there will still be an assessment. I can't reveal the specific content. You only need to prepare yourself to suffer hardship. I put away the card. That's it. You think that's simple? It's just hardship. I grinned. I've eaten it since I was little. Pei Chongping looked at me for several seconds, then smiled too. Fine. I hope you can stay this tough during the assessment. He stood up and straightened his casual clothes. My mission is complete. Jingluo City still needs me to hold it down. Chenon, I hope that next time we meet, you'll carry your father's glory and climb even higher. I immediately stood up and struck my right fist against my chest. I will. Pei Chongping nodded and turned to leave. I wanted to see him off, but he raised his hand and stopped me. No need. Outside the shop, a military vehicle had already stopped by the roadside. Pei Chongping opened the door, but did not get in immediately. He swept his gaze around. I'll leave the rest to you. Protect him well. The pedestrians on the street were only watching the military vehicle. No one heard his low words. But beneath a tree by the roadside, space suddenly rippled faintly. Very quickly, it returned to normal. I sat inside the shop and did not turn around. But I could sense several concealed auras had already locked onto me. Protection or surveillance? It didn't matter. I closed my eyes. Inside my body, two powers were slowly intertwining. One was full of boundless vitality, like all things reviving. That was Qingdi. The other power was icy, violent, filled with the desire to plunder and slaughter. That was Tyrant. However, none of them knew one thing. What I had awakened was not only Qingdi. For the next 3 days, I first returned to the orphanage. The old director was already waiting at the entrance. When he saw me, he didn't ask about spirit awakening, nor did he ask about Qinzheng Lin. He only patted my shoulder. You've grown taller. You saw me just last month. Last month, you were still a child. And now I'm not. Now you're going on a long journey. I fell silent for a moment, then opened my arms and hugged him. Old man, I'll come back. No respect for your elders. He scolded me with his mouth, yet hugged me even tighter than I hugged him. Before I left, the old director took out a wooden box. These are the things you carried when we found you. I opened the wooden box. Inside was a jade pendant covered in cracks. Beneath the jade pendant was a piece of torn cloth. The cloth had long since yellowed, and dried blood stained it. 2 characters could faintly be seen. Chenong, when we found you back then, you kept holding on to it. You held it very tightly. No matter how I pried, I couldn't open your hand. Later, only after you fell asleep did I take it off. The old director pointed at the piece of cloth. Your name came from here. I picked up the jade pendant. A gentle spiritual power flowed along my palm and entered my body. The Qingdi ability actually trembled lightly. This thing was related to my mother. I immediately made that judgment. I put away the wooden box. Old man, thank you. If you really want to thank me, come back alive. Don't worry. I waved my hand. You still haven't left your retirement money to me. I can't bear to die. The old director's emotions flared in an instant. He raised his leg as if to kick me. Get lost. I laughed and ran out of the welfare home. The next night, the 3 of us went to the little tavern we often visited. Drink. Sun Qian's face was flushed red as she slammed a bottle onto the table. 3 more bottles to go. Don't even think about backing out. Sun Yuan hugged a bottle with an extremely resistant expression. I didn't say I wouldn't drink. What I mean is, slow down a bit. Drink gradually. Drink with rhythm. What are you rushing me for? Sun Qian slapped the table. When you used to force me to drink, why didn't you mention rhythm? You're taking revenge. Yeah, I am taking revenge. Sun Yuan turned to look at me. Angzi, control this crazy woman. I was squeezed into the corner of the sofa by the siblings, so I could only silently take a sip of wine. Fatty. What? You still owe me 5 bottles. Sun Yuan froze instantly. No, bro. You too. He pointed at us and accused us emotionally for a while. You two definitely cheated. What kind of decent person rolls dice and gets 5 ones every single round? With luck like that, why don't you go buy lottery tickets? Cut the crap. Drink. Sun Qian stuffed the bottle into his arms. Sun Yuan resigned himself to fate. Fine, fine, I'll drink. Tonight's the last night. You two are heading to Tian's Academy tomorrow. He suddenly squeezed over beside me, nearly knocking me off the sofa with his butt. Let's make this clear first. If you become rich and powerful, don't forget me. I raised my hand and pushed him away. Don't worry. The first lesson at Nandu First High, loyalty and righteousness. Sun Yuan immediately cheered up. That's more like it. Then I'll just lie flat from now on. If anyone dares bully me, I'll directly give them your names. Sun Qian pushed him. Bro, did you forget the second lesson? Sun Yuan was already a little drunk. What's the second lesson? Love your brothers? Sun Qian's face was expressionless. Forget your roots. Sun Yuan's eyes widened abruptly. Immediately after, his emotions completely erupted, and he chased Sun Qian all over the tavern. Stop right there. Today, I'll make you understand what it means that an elder brother is like a father. Catch me first, then talk. I sat on the sofa, watching the 2 of them make a scene. Suddenly, I felt that this was pretty good too. Parting did not necessarily have to involve tears. Have a drink. Make a scene. Then each person keeps moving forward. The next day, when I woke up, my head felt like it was about to split open. None of us had used spiritual power to disperse the alcohol last night. If you even cheat while drinking, Then what's the point of drinking? I did not even remember how I got back to the school dormitory. I picked up my phone and checked. 1 in the afternoon. Damn. I rolled out of bed and quickly washed up. Today was the third day. The people coming to pick me up could arrive at any moment. I had just changed into my shoes when my phone rang. Hello. Chenon. On the other end of the call was a calm male voice. I'm Zhang Ping, the person in charge of Tiance Academy's freshmen. I'm at your school gate right now. Pack up and come out. All right, give me a moment. I hung up, grabbed the suitcase I had prepared long ago, and went straight downstairs. Outside the school gate, a black business van was parked. A man in casual clothes leaned against the car door and raised his hand at me. Over here. He looked about 30 years old. His hair was not particularly neat, and his clothes were casual. His entire bearing carried a somewhat unruly air. He did not look like a teacher. He looked more like a gangster boss preparing to take someone out to handle some business. I walked up to the car and discovered that Sun Qian was already sitting in the back row. She rolled down the window and waved at me. Chenon, why are you so slow? Do you not know who kept pouring drinks last night? My brother. You poured the most. That was also my brother's instruction. Fine. All the blame went to Sun Yuan. Zhang Ping took out a pack of cigarettes, pulled one out, and handed it to me. Smoke. Thanks. I took the cigarette and lowered my head to light it. Zhang Ping leaned against the car door and looked me up and down. I heard your father is General Qin Zhenglin. Yes. What about it? My tone was very calm. He raised an eyebrow. Clearly, he had not expected me to be even tougher than him. Nothing. Just confirming. Also, I heard that after your spirit awakening, you directly broke through to the martial master realm? I exhaled a mouthful of smoke. I'm now at the second level of martial master. Zhang Ping's expression changed slightly. Reading it in a file was one thing. Hearing me say it in person was another. But he quickly regained his composure. Not bad. However, there are 3 other freshmen as strong as you in this year's batch. After saying that, he stared at me. He seemed to be waiting for me to show a shocked expression. I nodded. Then I finished the last drag, stepped on the cigarette butt, and put it out. Leader, when are we leaving? The corners of Zhang Ping's mouth visibly twitched twice. You're not surprised? Why would I be surprised? There are 3 others like you who directly broke through to martial master after spirit awakening. That's pretty good. I pulled open the car door. Saves me from having no opponents after I get there. Zhang Ping stared at my back and muttered something under his breath. He did not say the specific curse words, but from his tone, it was obvious he meant, this kid is even more arrogant than the rumors say. After getting in the car, I leaned against the seat and closed my eyes to rest. 3 geniuses who became martial masters immediately after spirit awakening. Pei Chongping had already sent me a message about this matter. When I first learned about it, I was indeed a little surprised. But after learning the details, I no longer was. Among those 3 people, only one had truly relied on himself to break through. The other 2 had benefited from their family backgrounds to some extent. When they underwent spirit awakening, their elders had long prepared heavenly treasures containing vast amounts of spiritual energy. Once their chi vortexes condensed, they immediately consumed them. Normally, their bodies would never have been able to withstand spiritual energy of that scale. But after spirit awakening, the body was in a state of frenzied spiritual energy absorption. Those treasures just happened to help them condense 9 chi vortexes, then support the vortexes as they merged into the dantian. This did not count as cheating. The treasures were merely assistance. Whether they could cross that threshold still depended on the individuals themselves. But that overwhelming second-generation elite aura was indeed quite strong. As for the third person who relied on himself to break through, he was even more ruthless than me. He forced his way through the barrier and nearly shattered his foundation. Fortunately, there was a major healing-type figure in his family who acted in time and helped him recover. In other words, these 3 people were indeed all very strong. It was just that they had treasures. They had elders. They had powerful figures protecting their path. And when I broke through, I had nothing. Only one life. Comparing it this way, I suddenly felt. They did not seem that frightening after all. Someone suddenly poked me in the waist. I opened my eyes. What? Sun Qian curled her lips. I called you several times. What were you thinking about so deeply? I was thinking about who to beat up first after arriving at the academy. You'd better not go crazy. That depends on whether they know how to behave. Sun Qian rolled her eyes and handed me a small wooden box. My brother gave this to you. He said it's a bracelet he prayed for at Wudong Temple 2 days ago. That stingy bastard didn't even get one for me. I took the wooden box. Inside lay a string of Bodhi beads. Beside it was a folded piece of paper. I opened it and looked. That crooked handwriting. There was no need to guess. It was Sun Yuan's. Angzi, I originally wanted to give this to you as a birthday present when your birthday came. But since you're going to Shanjing, you probably won't be able to come back for your birthday. After thinking about it, I decided to give it to you early. Consider it an early happy birthday. Also, there's one more thing I need to trouble you with. You know what kind of personality my sister has. Careless, straightforward, and since childhood, she's never been the type to willingly suffer a loss. When you get to Shanjing, help me keep an eye on her. Writing is too troublesome, so I won't write more. In short, just 2 things. First, look after my sister. Second, may your martial fortune flourish. Looking at those final words, I could not help but laugh. This fatty. Usually, his cultural studies were a complete mess, but at critical moments, he actually knew how to use fancy words. Over the years, I had known quite a few people, but the only one I could truly open my heart to was Sun Yuan. What did my brother write? Sun Qian immediately leaned over. Let me see. I quickly folded the paper away. He said that if you provoke some big shot at Tian's Academy, I should immediately cut ties with you and separate him from the matter too. The old Sun family still relies on him to continue the family line, so he can't take risks. Sun Qian froze. Really? Really? Great. She immediately took out her phone. That bastard. The moment the call connected, she began unleashing a torrent. Although she did not repeat any specific curse words, that emotion and momentum could be felt even from several meters away. Sitting beside her, I almost laughed out loud. The business van drove toward the airport. At the time, I did not know that another battlefield had also completely opened because of the newly appeared spatial rift in Tianqiao. That was a meeting recording I saw several days later inside Tian's Academy. The location was the World Federation Conference building. Representatives from various countries had gathered together. Seated at the head was the chief counselor of the World Federation, Lysander William. He put down the microphone, his gaze landing directly on the Tianqiao seats. Counselor Ning, what do you think of my proposal? At the Tianqiao representative seats, an elderly man dressed in a Tang suit had his eyes half closed. It was as if he had fallen asleep. Lysander's expression darkened. Counselor Ning. Only then did the old man open his eyes. Were you calling me? He looked up at Lysander, his smile gentle. My apologies. I'm old, so I doze off easily. What did the chief counselor say just now? Lysander's hand under the table clenched instantly. Even through the recording, one could see that he had endured it with great difficulty at the time. As the nominal highest counselor of the World Federation, what he hated most was others not giving him face. Unfortunately, Ning Zonghua had publicly ignored him more than once. This time, Lysander clearly believed he had seized Tianqiao's weakness. He leaned forward and repeated each word slowly. I heard that a few days ago, another spatial rift appeared within your country's borders. Your country was already suppressing 5 rifts. Now that another has appeared, your military strength must be stretched thin. Therefore, after discussions between me and several counselors, we have decided that the United States, the empire on which the sun never sets, Sakura country, and Goryeo will jointly dispatch troops to station themselves in Tianqiao. We can take over the spatial rift in Jiang province. In this way, your country can also transfer forces to suppress the newly appeared Orc civilization. Lysander spoke with impassioned generosity. Those who did not know the truth might really think he was acting for the safety of humanity on Blue Star. But everyone knew. It was easy to invite a god, but difficult to send one away. Once the armies of the 4 countries entered Tianqiao, no one could guarantee what they would do next. Moreover, on the other side of the Jiang province rift, resources were extremely abundant. What they had their eyes on was not helping Tianqiao at all. It was Jiang province's land, resources, and the benefits behind that rift. Lysander continued. The meaning behind the establishment of the World Federation is for all humanity to jointly confront foreign civilizations. If Tianqiao refuses assistance, and once the rift falls. Wait. Ning Zonghua suddenly spoke and interrupted him. Lysander's expression immediately turned ugly. Ning Zonghua slowly stood up. Every gaze in the conference hall focused on him. Some were mocking, some sneered, others clearly showed apprehension. But Ning Zonghua seemed not to see any of them. He merely straightened his tang suit. I'll simply ask one question. Which countries participated in this decision? He was not particularly tall. The smile on his face was also very gentle. But when those cloudy eyes swept across the hall, the entire conference room fell silent. Lysander's eyelids twitched. Before he could answer, an elderly man from Sakura country with a toothbrush mustache and triangular eyes stood up. What? Does Counselor Ning object to this resolution? He spoke in Tianchao's language, his pronunciation stiff, but his tone full of provocation. As he stood up, the representatives of other countries who had participated in this resolution also rose one after another. 1, 3, 5. Among them were several World Federation counselors. Ning Zonghua did not get angry. He merely fiddled with the nameplate on the table. Under the lights, the gilded characters on the nameplate were especially eye-catching. Tianchao, Ning Zonghua. After no one else stood up, Ning Zonghua raised his eyes slightly. Little Lei. Behind him, the middle-aged man responsible for recording the meeting immediately stood up. Elder Ning. Write down all the countries they represent. Send it back home. Don't miss a single one. Yes. The middle-aged man picked up the recording device, his gaze sweeping across the faces of those representatives one by one. Lysander finally could not remain seated. Counselor Ning, what do you mean by this? Nothing much. Ning Zonghua picked up his cane. I'm old. I get sleepy. This old man will go back and catch up on sleep first. With that, he turned and left. The entire conference hall burst into an uproar. Lysander's face turned livid. The meeting is not over yet. Ning Zonghua did not stop. Only when he was nearly at the door did he seem to suddenly remember something, turning half his face back. Oh, right. The chief counselor's words reminded me of something. A new spatial rift has appeared within Tianchao's borders, and it is currently under full martial law. From now on, Tianchao enters a state of war. His voice was not loud, yet it overwhelmed the discussions in the entire conference hall. I advise everyone, do not enter Tianchao's borders anytime soon. Whether it is armies, spiritual practitioners, or certain spies with unclear identities, you had best stay far away. Otherwise, the smile on Ning Zonghua's face disappeared little by little. Tianchao will regard all of them as invaders and handle them as those who provoke a national war. After saying this, he walked toward the door without looking back. The middle-aged man named Little Lei followed behind him. Before exiting, he deliberately turned back and smiled at the representatives who had stood up. There was not the slightest concealment in that gaze. It was pure provocation. You want to enter Tianchao? Come, try it. Seeing that the two were about to walk out of the conference hall, the triangular-eyed elder from Sakura country finally could not endure it. Bang! He slapped the table with one palm. The tabletop instantly cracked. How insolent! He erupted into a barrage of extremely aggressive curses, then pointed at Ning Zonghua's back and roared. Ning Zonghua, the chief counselor has not yet declared the meeting adjourned, yet you leave without permission. In your eyes, does the World Federation still exist? Ning Zonghua stopped. He did not turn around. The entire conference hall also fell completely silent at this moment. Only later did I learn that at the same time we were heading to Shanjing, someone in the World Federation conference hall had already fought a fierce battle on Tianchao's behalf. And that meeting recording also spread widely inside Tian's Academy. In the footage, Sakura country's representative, Koizumi Ichiro, pointed at Ning Zonghua, who was about to leave, and questioned him angrily. The chief counselor has not yet declared the meeting adjourned. You are leaving without permission. In your eyes, does the World Federation still exist? His voice echoed throughout the hall. Lysander William, seated at the head, did not stop him. On the contrary, a trace of satisfaction even flashed through his gloomy eyes. The meaning was obvious. Continue. Question him fiercely. The bigger the accusation, the better. Ning Zonghua stopped. With his back to everyone, he let out a long sigh. To be honest, I really am not suited to sit in this position. Unfortunately, the head of state insisted on sending me. After saying that, he slowly turned around. The eyes that had seemed drowsy just moments ago were now frighteningly sharp. Koizumi Ichiro, I've put up with you for a long time. Who exactly gave you the courage to speak to me like that? Ning Zhonghua's gaze passed over Koizumi Ichiro and landed directly on Lysander. Was it your master? Keep your dog on a leash. The entire hall fell silent. Koizumi Ichiro's face instantly flushed red, and his mouth erupted into a string of aggressive curses. Bang! He smashed the conference table in front of him with one palm. Spiritual wood exploded, and splinters flew everywhere. Lysander also abruptly stood up, but he did not speak. Instead, while everyone was looking toward Koizumi Ichiro, he sent him a look. Attack! Koizumi Ichiro understood. As if he had suddenly received an order, his entire body vanished in an instant. Boom! The air exploded. The space at the entrance of the conference hall was forcibly torn open into a pitch-black crack. In the blink of an eye, Koizumi Ichiro rushed in front of Ning Zhonghua. His right fist was wrapped in a dark glow as it smashed fiercely toward Ning Zhonghua's face. Ning Zhonghua, you're too arrogant. Today, I'll teach you the rules of the World Federation. This punch was terrifyingly fast. Koizumi Ichiro was a 9-star Star Glory expert. According to Tianchao's system, that was the 9th level of Martial Emperor. Among the representatives of the various countries, his combat power was enough to rank in the top 10. As for Ning Zhonghua, although he was also a martial emperor, he had suffered severe injuries in a spatial rift in his early years. His foundation had been damaged, and his cultivation had remained at the 8th level of martial emperor for many years. At least, that was what all the information everyone had received said. 9th level martial emperor against 8th level martial emperor. Koizumi Ichiro felt that the advantage was his. So he charged, and that charge sent him to his death. Smack! There was no earth-shattering collision. Ning Zhonghua merely raised his left hand and casually caught his fist. The dark glow on the fist trembled wildly. Yet Ning Zhonghua's sleeve did not even flutter. Koizumi Ichiro froze. He lowered his head to look at his own fist, then raised his head to look at Ning Zhonghua. What was going on? In the next second, the experience accumulated from years of slaughter sounded alarms madly in his mind. Run. He had to run immediately. Koizumi Ichiro abruptly tried to pull his hand back. It did not move. He exerted force again, spiritual power erupting fully from his body. Still, it did not move. Ning Zhonghua held his fist with one hand, as though pinching a struggling insect. Your realm is unstable. Your foundation is shaky. With you in such a state, how did you even cultivate to the 9th level of martial emperor? A fierce look flashed in Koizumi Ichiro's eyes. Corrode. The black, dark glow instantly surged. A terrifying corrosive force followed Ning Zhonghua's palm and rapidly spread toward his arm. The air let out sizzling sounds. Ning Zhonghua lowered his head and glanced at it. Your ability itself is not bad. What a pity. He raised his eyes again. You are not worthy of it. The moment his voice fell, every hair on Koizumi Ichiro's body stood on end. What he saw in Ning Zhonghua's eyes was not anger. It was killing intent. It was the kind of gaze honed from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. No threats. No testing. Ning Zhonghua truly intended to kill him. Koizumi Ichiro finally panicked. His lips trembled, and he opened his mouth to ask them to stop. Too late. The corner of Ning Zhonghua's mouth pulled into a ruthless smile. His right hand formed a blade and stabbed straight toward Koizumi Ichiro's heart. Stop! Lysander could no longer remain seated. His body instantly turned into a streak of light and crossed the entire conference hall, attempting to stop Ning Zhonghua. Even at this moment, he still could not understand. According to the information, Ning Zhonghua was clearly an 8th level martial emperor. Why was the aura he erupted with so powerful? Bang! Halfway through his charge, Lysander collided with a figure. Violent power exploded with a boom. The ground cracked. The surrounding seats overturned at the same time. The meeting recorder Little Lei, who had been standing beside Ning Zhonghua, had forcibly blocked Lysander's path. At this moment, the skin exposed outside his clothes had already turned crystal clear. His entire body seemed as though it had been carved from diamond. Little Lei was knocked back more than 10 meters, his feet plowing 2 deep grooves into the ground. He rubbed his chest, baring his teeth in pain. Immediately afterward, he tore off his shirt. His crystalline upper body muscles bulged, as though carved by a blade. Come, fight me. His voice was like thunder, shaking the entire hall. The meaning could not have been clearer. If you follow the rules, I'll take meeting notes for you. If you don't follow the rules, then I also know a little hand-to-hand combat. Did you really think an assigned clerk had no combat ability? Lysander was forcibly stopped, his expression darkening to the extreme. The next second, a scream came from the entrance of the conference hall. Ah! The cry lasted only an instant. Then it abruptly stopped. Lysander's heart sank. Too late. Koizumi Ichiro was already dead. If not for that damned recorder blocking him, he definitely would have had a chance to save him. Lysander stared at Little Lei, the killing intent in his eyes almost becoming tangible. But Little Lei did not retreat a single step. He hooked his finger. What are you looking at? If you want to fight, come. Little Lei. Ning Zhonghua's voice came from the doorway. Little Lei's movements paused. Elder Ning, how are you speaking to the chief counselor? No manners. Ning Zhonghua scolded with a stern face. When we get back, you'll be punished by skipping one meal. Little Lei immediately lowered his head. Yes. Lysander almost laughed from anger. Skipping one meal? That counted as punishment? Ning Zhonghua walked back into the conference hall. As he walked, he smoothed the creases on his sleeves, his face once again carrying a gentle smile. Why is everyone standing? Sit. Everyone sit. This is the World Federation's council chamber, after all. If all of you lose your composure like this and foreign civilizations see it, wouldn't that be a joke? When great nations converse, they should have broad-mindedness. The corners of every representative's mouth twitched at the same time. Broad-mindedness. What part of you has anything to do with that word? Moreover, Ning Zhonghua was still carrying Koizumi Ichiro in his hand. To be precise, Koizumi Ichiro's corpse. From the beginning of the fight to the end, Ning Zhonghua had only used 1.5 moves. Raising his hand to block the punch barely counted as half a move. Thrusting his palm through the heart counted as one move. And then there was nothing after that. The meeting recorder from Sakura Country stood where he was, his legs trembling uncontrollably. He did not dare speak. He was even controlling his breathing. The representative who had been so aggressive moments ago had now become a corpse. Did he dare move? Not at all. Thud. Ning Zhonghua tossed Koizumi Ichiro into the center of the hall. Then he crouched down and used the other man's clothes to wipe the blood from his hand. He glanced at Koizumi Ichiro's terrified, twisted face before death. Being in the same realm as you makes me feel ashamed. Be smarter in your next life. Ning Zhonghua stood up, his gaze sweeping across the entire hall. You are a martial emperor because martial emperor is as far as you can cultivate. I am a martial emperor because my foundation was damaged. Otherwise, he pointed at the corpse beneath his feet. Even your emperor would have to bow respectfully when he saw me. His voice was very soft. Yet when it entered the ears of the representatives from various countries, it sounded like thunder exploding. Only at this moment did these people truly realize. The old man before them, who always wore a smiling face and dozed off at every opportunity, was not an elderly sheep at all. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and one capable of biting a 9th-level martial emperor to death in a single mouthful. The same thought emerged in many people's minds. Ning Zhonghua actually dared kill Sakura Country's representative in the World Federation Conference Hall. Was he not afraid of triggering a national war? If Ning Zhonghua knew what they were thinking, he would probably explain two things very patiently. First, he killed the man at the entrance of the conference hall. Strictly speaking, he had not acted inside the conference hall. Second, national war? Even if Sakura Country borrowed 100 guts, would they dare? If they truly dared start a war, Tianchao's spiritual martial army could beat their island until it sank. Ning Zhonghua. Lysander finally could not suppress his rage. You must give the World Federation an explanation. His entire body was trembling. Ning Zhonghua had killed a World Federation counselor right in front of him. After killing him, he had even carried the corpse back and told everyone to continue the meeting. This was no longer provocation. This was pressing his face into the ground and stomping on it. An explanation? Ning Zhonghua looked puzzled. After I walked out from inside, he was the first to. Halfway through, he coughed lightly twice. What I mean is, Koizumi Ichiro was the first to violate regulations and launch an attack against me. I merely fought back in self-defense. So many people here saw it. You can't blame me just because he was too weak and I accidentally killed him, can you? Lysander almost erupted on the spot. Accidentally, your palm directly pierced through his heart. What part of that looked accidental? But Ning Zonghua did not give him a chance to speak. If that won't do, then Chief Counselor, you can punish me. For example, he thought seriously for 2 seconds. Strip Tian Chao of its position in the World Federation? The anger in Lysander's eyes instantly vanished. His mind became clear, extremely clear. He stared fixedly at Ning Zonghua, suspecting he had misheard. Kick Tian Chao out of the World Federation? And then what? Let these people completely lose their restraints and become a beast with its reins cut loose? Around the conference hall, the sounds of people sharply inhaling also rang out. Representatives from various countries looked toward Lysander one after another. Do not agree. Decades ago, Tian Chao had once been schemed against by several countries led by the United States and expelled from the World Federation. At that time, all countries were waiting to watch the joke. They believed that without the World Federation's resource support, Tian Chao would not be able to endure for long against the spatial rifts that kept appearing within its borders. And the result? Tian Chao directly evacuated all civilians near the newly appeared rift. Land could be abandoned. People had to live. Then, Tian Chao turned around and launched national wars against surrounding countries. The reason was also entirely justified. The world had abandoned Tian Chao. But Tian Chao could not abandon the world. Tian Chao was willing to use the strength of the entire country to help neighboring countries suppress their spatial rifts. As a result, Bear Country and Tianju Country lost vast territories on the spot. The World Federation stepped in to intervene. Tian Chao only replied with one sentence. What do the World Federation's rules have to do with us? We are not members. Even more ruthless was what came after. Once Tian Chao withdrew, the spatial rift that no one was suppressing went completely out of control. Foreign civilizations swept across Blue Star. In the end, it was still other countries that suffered. The World Federation had no choice but to invite Tian Chao to join again. Not only did they have to invite them, they also had to offer massive amounts of supplies as a show of sincerity. So kick Tian Chao out. No one dared. Lysander's teeth ground audibly. His body trembled like a machine running at maximum power. But he simply did not dare respond to those words. Originally, he had thought that since Tian Chao had just lost 2 generals in battle and also had to suppress 6 spatial rifts at the same time, its forces would inevitably be empty. As long as he united most countries to apply pressure, Ning Zonghua would have no choice but to lower his head. But in the end, not only did Ning Zonghua not lower his head, he even killed a counselor on the spot. How was this a negotiation? This was clearly slapping him across the face. Ning Zonghua looked at his aggrieved appearance and smiled. It seems the chief counselor does not intend to pursue the matter. In that case, this old man will take his leave first. I'm old, so I get sleepy easily. Little Lei, let's go. Send me back to sleep. Yes. Ning Zonghua turned and left. This time, no one dared stop him. Only after his figure disappeared beyond the door did the oppressive atmosphere loosen slightly. Representatives from countries friendly with Tian Chao stood up one after another. Those who remained neutral also began finding excuses to leave. Bear Country's counselor, Andewa, stood up. He was built like a brown bear, his suit stretched tight, as if it might tear at any moment. I suddenly remembered that my wife is still waiting for me at home. She made my favorite soup. Chief Counselor, if there is nothing else, I'll leave first. He adjusted his clothes and muttered quietly. Loungewear is still more comfortable. Lysander stared at him gloomily. Counselor Andewa, your behavior truly surprises me. It even makes people look down on you. Andewa stopped and looked confused. What do you mean? You were present during the preliminary discussions for this proposal. Lysander was obviously questioning him. He had been there during the discussions. Yet when the other representatives stood up in support, he remained seated. And now, once Ning Zonghua left, he wanted to run too? Andewa shrugged. I did participate, but I did not express an opinion, much less agree. I was too sleepy at the time and fell asleep. After saying that, he directly left with his recorder. After walking out of the conference hall, Andewa confirmed that no one was around before muttering in clumsy Tian Chao language. A bunch of idiots. Do they really think Tian Chao is easy to bully? They don't even think about how the previous chief counselor stepped down. Why do they never learn? At that time, however, I knew nothing about any of this. The business van drove into Nandu Airport. Along the way, We did not encounter any inspections, whether security personnel or airport staff. As soon as they saw the credentials Zhang Ping showed, they all quickly let us pass. Sun Qian and I handed our luggage to the staff and followed Zhang Ping onto a private plane. The inside of the plane was spacious. More than 20 young men and women were scattered around the cabin. Some had their eyes closed in rest. Some had their heads lowered in cultivation. A few others were secretly observing the people around them. Zhang Ping stood in the middle of the aisle. I am responsible for receiving freshmen within the Yunnan province region. Everyone on this plane is a freshman of this year's Science Academy. From now on, you are classmates. I swept my gaze around. More than 20 people. In other words, basically everyone in Yunnan province who had received an admission letter from Science Academy this year was here. Zhang Ping continued speaking. You may familiarize yourselves with one another in advance. Next, we will first head to Jingluo City. There is one more freshman there. After saying that, he told us to find our own seats. The plane was about to take off. Sun Qian and I found a corner. No one came over to strike up a conversation. We also did not take the initiative to talk to anyone else. Those who could sit on this plane were all true geniuses. And geniuses, well, they all had some pride to a greater or lesser degree. Whoever spoke first seemed to be lowering themselves. I did not really care about those things. The main reason was that I still had not fully recovered from last night's drinking. I leaned against the seat and had not closed my eyes for long when the plane began to descend. So fast. You slept for 2 hours. Sun Qian reminded me from beside me. The plane landed. Zhang Ping left alone. This departure lasted 2 or 3 hours. When he appeared again, there was now a young man beside him. The young man wore a washed-out jacket, and his pants were clearly a bit too short. His style of dress was somewhat old-fashioned. There was a faint patch of freckles on his cheek. As soon as he boarded the plane, he curiously looked all around. He looked at the seats. He looked at the windows. He even stared at the overhead lights for a long while. I could not help looking at him a few more times. The young man soon noticed my gaze. He turned to look at me, grinned, and even waved voluntarily. I was stunned for a moment. Those eyes, they were too clean. I had never seen a person's eyes be so clear to such an extent. It was as if a starry sky was hidden within them. Lively, bright, without the slightest impurity. Seeing him take the initiative to greet me, I nodded in response. Zhang Ping urged from behind. Stop looking. Find a seat first. We're preparing for takeoff. The boy looked around, then finally walked toward us. He stopped in front of me and spoke politely. Hello, classmate. My name is Wang Wan. May I sit next to you? Before I could say anything, Sun Qian was already nodding frantically. Yes. Absolutely yes. I turned to look at her. Her eyes were shining as she stared fixedly at Wang Wan. She looked exactly like a starving wolf seeing a little lamb deliver itself to her door. Wang Wan clearly hesitated for a moment. Thank you. After saying that, he sat down carefully. Judging from his expression, he had probably already started regretting it. I waved my hand in front of Sun Qian's eyes. Wipe your drool. Aren't you embarrassed? What drool? Sun Qian argued back, but she actually raised her hand and wiped the corner of her mouth. Of course, she wiped nothing. She leaned closer to me and lowered her voice. Chenong, don't you think his eyes are especially pretty? Not really. They're especially full of spirit. Whoever you think is good-looking has spirit. It's different. She clutched her chest with a serious expression. This might be the legendary love at first sight. I sneered. You'd better just be lusting after his looks. The plane took off again. This time, it didn't stop along the way. It seemed all the freshmen from Yunnan province had been picked up. During the flight, the three of us gradually became familiar with each other. Wang Wan had a very good personality. To be precise, he was almost too good-natured. Whatever others asked, he basically answered. He didn't even hide his ability. S-Rank combat type ability, Heavenly Sovereign. Only S-Rank. As soon as Sun Qian asked, she immediately realized something was wrong. No, I'm not saying you're weak. It's just that on this plane, S-Rank really is a little. She didn't know how to describe it. Wang Wan didn't mind. It's fine. I know. The teacher in charge of testing also said my initial rating isn't particularly high. Initial rating? I caught the key point. Your ability can grow? Wang Wan nodded. Heavenly Sovereign has never appeared before. I came up with the name myself. The inspection teacher said that right now, it's only S rank, but it hasn't fully awakened yet. If it's nurtured well, it may advance to SS rank in the future. It might even have a chance to reach SSS rank. That made sense. An ability appearing for the first time since the dimensional rifts emerged. And it possessed growth potential. That kind of potential was enough for Tian's Academy to make an exception and admit him. Wangwen picked up some snacks from the table and spoke while eating. I'm the only one left in my family now. Sun Qian and I looked at him at the same time. He said it very calmly. My father died in battle a few days ago inside a dimensional rift connected to the Orc civilization. The smile on Sun Qian's face disappeared instantly. Sadness flashed through Wang Wen's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by pride. My dad was a regimental commander of the 4th Spiritual Martial Army Corps. In that battle, he killed over 1,000 orcs. In the end, to save his comrades, he perished together with a martial ancestor-level mutated beast. He folded the empty snack bag neatly and placed it into the trash bag. He rarely came home before. When my mom was seriously ill, he was still fighting in another dimensional rift. Later, my mom passed away. After that, he came home even less often. On the rare occasions he did come back, it was usually because his injuries were too severe and the Army Corps forced him to take sick leave. I said nothing. That experience was far too similar to what had happened to my parents. The front line, the rifts. To protect the people behind them, they lost their own homes. Wangwen continued. Before my mom passed away, she told me not to blame him. Actually, even if she hadn't said that, I wouldn't have blamed him. Our family has always been a military family. My grandfather and grandmother both served in the spiritual martial army. They often said. Wangwen raised his head. There are some things someone has to do. After saying that, he grinned. When I graduate from Tian's Academy, I'll join the spiritual martial army too. I'll return to Jingluo City and join the 4th Spiritual Martial Army Corps. His gaze suddenly became firm. One day, I'll avenge my dad. How many people the Orc civilization killed? I'll make them pay back double. Wu. Sun Qian suddenly burst into tears. She sniffled, tears streaming uncontrollably down her face. Several freshmen nearby had also heard Wang Wen's words. They did not interrupt, but the way they looked at Wang Wen gained a little more respect. I pulled out a few tissues and handed them to Sun Qian. Wipe your face. Your makeup is ruined. I'm not wearing makeup. Then that's even worse. Can you shut up? She took the tissues and continued crying. I turned to look at Wang Wen. When you take revenge, count me in. I thought of Qin Zhenglin, that man who never managed to come back and see me before he died. My chest still hurt. But compared to crying, I wanted to charge in more. Charge into the Orc civilization and make them repay every blood debt they owed, one by one. Wang Wen blinked. You want to avenge my dad too? Uffed. A freshman in the front row who was drinking water sprayed it out on the spot. The expression on my face also stiffened. No matter how I listened to it, that sentence sounded wrong. No, I'm avenging my own dad. Wang Wen asked instinctively. Your dad died too? I fell silent. Technically, that was true. But why did it sound so strange coming from his mouth? In the end, I still answered. He also died in that battle. What was your father's name? Chun Zhenglin. Wang Wen froze. General Chun? He suddenly sat up straight. You're General Chin's son? Inside the plane, quite a few freshmen around us also turned to look. Clearly, they had all heard Chun Zhenglin's name. I wasn't very used to that kind of gaze. I only just recognized him. To be precise, I only just found out. Wang Wen looked at me, then suddenly held out his fist. Then from now on, we'll take revenge together. I raised my hand and bumped fists with him. Okay. After quite a while, Sun Qian finally stopped crying. She patted Wang Wen on the shoulder. Don't worry, little one. From now on, we're friends. Wang Wen's expression stiffened. Little one. What? You don't like it? It's not that. Then it's settled. Sun Qian waved her hand boldly. If you run into any trouble in the future, She paused, then pointed at me. Chen Ong will protect you. I turned to look at her. What does that have to do with me? You're better at fighting. You're the one acting impressive. Why am I the one responsible? What's our relationship? A relationship I can sever at any time. That's no fun. Wang Wen sat in the middle, looking at me. Then at Sun Qian, obvious confusion appearing in his eyes. He was probably wondering whether joining this little group the moment he got on the plane had been the right decision. We chatted along the way. After an unknown amount of time, the plane began to descend. Outside the porthole, an enormous city appeared in view. Shangjing, the center of the Celestial Empire, and also the place where Tian's Academy was located. After the plane came to a stop, Zhang Ping walked to the center of the aisle. Everyone wake up. Prepare to get off the plane. The cabin door slowly opened. Zhang Ping spread his arms, a warm smile appearing on his face. Everyone, welcome to Shangjing. And Tian's Academy welcomes you as well. The freshmen in the cabin immediately became excited. Zhang Ping continued. Get ready. The freshman welcoming ceremony arranged for you by Tian's Academy has already begun. Hearing this, many people perked up. There's a welcoming ceremony? Tian's Academy, is that friendly? What's the program? Will there be senior girls dancing for the welcome ceremony? Idiot. A cold voice suddenly sounded. The freshmen who had been excitedly discussing turned their heads at the same time. The speaker was a long-haired boy. His long hair fell all the way past his shoulders, tied simply with a ribbon at the ends. His face was delicate and handsome. When I first boarded the plane, I had thought he was a girl at first glance. The boy who first suggested senior girls dancing darkened his expression. What do you mean? The long-haired boy didn't even look at him. Exactly what I said. You looking for trouble? Just as the atmosphere was about to heat up, Wang Wen suddenly pointed forward. Where's Supervisor Zhang? Everyone froze. Then they all turned their heads at the same time. Zhang Ping, who had just been standing in the middle of the aisle, was already gone. The cabin door was still open, but outside, there wasn't even a single person in sight. I immediately stood up. Something was wrong. Very wrong. A supervisor had just announced the welcoming ceremony, then ran off? Who welcomed freshmen like this? Buzz. The cabin broadcast suddenly sounded with static. Immediately after, a pleasant female voice came through. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? That junior who said he wanted to watch senior girls dance earlier. I've already remembered you. Don't worry. There won't be any dancing senior girls. But there will be senior girls chasing you. The boy who had spoken first showed a smile. Really? I glanced at him. This guy was probably beyond saving. The woman over the broadcast laughed even more happily. Next, I will announce the specific arrangements for Tian's Academy's freshman welcoming ceremony. Juniors, make sure you listen carefully. In the overhead compartment above your supervisor's seat, there is a bag of smart bracelets. One for each person. After turning them on, the bracelets will display the location of Tian's Academy. You need to arrive at the academy within 7 days. Anyone who fails to arrive within the time limit will have their admission revoked. Go back wherever you came from. The excitement in the cabin quickly vanished. Someone frowned. You're making us go there ourselves? Isn't this an airport? The school didn't arrange a shuttle? The woman ignored them and continued. Of course. To make these boring 7 days a little more interesting, the academy has also arranged 50 senior students to accompany you. I'm one of them too. Her voice was sweet enough to be sickening. But the unease in my heart grew stronger and stronger. Sure enough, the next sentence came. During your journey to the academy, we will pursue you the entire time. The seniors will suppress their cultivation to first-level martial master. If we catch you, your smart bracelet will be taken away. Losing your bracelet will also count as failing the assessment. The entire cabin fell silent. The boy who had just been fantasizing about senior girls chasing him froze with a stiff smile on his face. A senior girl really would chase him. But after catching him, she wouldn't date him. She would send him back home. The woman over the broadcast suddenly laughed. Also, I heard there are 2 incredibly impressive geniuses among you. On the very day of awakening, you directly broke through to the martial master realm. I frowned. 2. Looks like she was talking about me and Wang Wen. You're really amazing. Much stronger than I was back then. I'm so jealous. So, to express our special care for geniuses. She deliberately paused. When the seniors encounter you too, they may loosen their strength restriction to 5th-level martial master. Good luck. I turned to look at Wang Wen. Wang Wen was also looking at me. He pointed at himself. Is she talking about us too? Probably. Why do other people get 1st-level martial masters while we get 5th-level martial masters? Because they have no shame. Oh, the woman over the broadcast was still laughing. All right, I've said a bit too much. Some seniors are already too impatient and have started rushing over here. Warm reminder. Your current location is not a normal airport. So, no ordinary people will come to help you. If you don't move now, you might not even make it out of the plane. Good luck, everyone. See you at Tyant's Academy in 7 days. Finally, she gave a frivolous farewell sound into the broadcast. Then the broadcast shut off. The cabin was dead silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. What happened to the welcoming ceremony? How was this welcoming freshman? This was clearly a battle royale. After a short silence, one student suddenly lunged toward Zhangping's seat. The bracelets! That shout instantly snapped everyone awake. More than 20 freshmen rushed toward the overhead compartment at the same time. Don't fight. One per person. Who took two? Get out first, then talk. I didn't move. Instead, I looked outside through the porthole. The tarmac was completely empty. No staff. No vehicles. Only a few abandoned warehouses in the distance, and a figure rapidly approaching. That person carried an alloy-long staff on his shoulder. He laughed while running. Even from this far away, I could feel the unconcealed fighting spirit radiating from him. I turned to look at the freshmen still fighting over the bracelets. Stop fighting. They're already here. Bang. As soon as I finished speaking, the outer shell of the plane suddenly caved inward. An arrogant voice came from outside. Juniors, welcome to Shangjing. Take a staff strike first as your reception gift. After the broadcast ended, the cabin was dead silent. The brave soul who had been clamoring to watch pretty senior girls dance had already shrunk into his seat, trembling all over. He probably understood now. A senior girl really would chase him. But if she caught him, he'd be expelled. Excuse me. The long-haired boy was the first to stand up. He completely ignored everyone else and walked straight to Zhang Ping's seat, opening the overhead compartment above it. Inside, there really was a black travel bag. He unzipped it. 27 smart bracelets were arranged neatly inside, exactly corresponding to the 27 freshmen. The long-haired boy took one out, put it on, and pressed the power button. The screen lit up. A map, countdown, and academy coordinates appeared at the same time. 7 days. 197 kilometers. He only glanced at it once before picking up his luggage and walking out of the cabin without looking back. I rubbed my chin and watched his back. Earlier, the broadcast mentioned that among us, there were 2 freshmen who had directly broken through to the martial master realm after awakening. I immediately guessed his identity. Sui Xiao, the biological grandson of Yunnan Inspector Sui Hong, one of the 4 geniuses this year who became martial masters upon awakening. Also one of the 2 who broke through by relying on drugs. Of course, treasures were only supplementary. People without ability would only burst themselves no matter how much they ate. But taking drugs was taking drugs. There was no washing that clean. Chenong. Sun Qian tugged at the corner of my clothes. What do we do now? She was clearly a little panicked. After all, no one had told her that Tyant's Academy's admission letter came with a chase game attached. She had thought that after getting off the plane, they could go register at school. But upon arriving in Shangjing, what welcomed us wasn't a school bus. It was 50 seniors sharpening their blades. What do you mean? What do we do? I looked outside the cabin door, the corners of my mouth already impossible to suppress. We improvise. Can you be serious? I am very serious. I flexed my wrist. Isn't this welcoming ceremony pretty fun? Sun Qian widened her eyes. What part of this is fun? If we're caught, we're expelled. If we don't reach the academy within 7 days, we're expelled too. Relax. I patted her shoulder. With me here, nothing unexpected will happen. Sun Qian stared at me, her expression growing even more worried. I understood her gaze. It was precisely because I was here that she felt unexpected things were more likely to happen. The broadcast had made it very clear. When others encountered seniors, the other side could only use first-level martial master strength. But when I and Sui Xiao encountered them, they could use 5th-level martial master strength. Let's go. I pushed through the crowd and took 3 smart bracelets from the bag. One for myself, one for Sun Qian, one for Wang Wen. Wang Wen took his and immediately put it on. Brother Chun, are we going together? Otherwise. Good. He smiled. In those overly clear eyes, there was no fear. Instead, there was a hint of expectation. This kid looked honest. But deep down, he probably wasn't simple either. The 3 of us walked toward the cabin door. But before we could get out, Sui Xiao, who had just left, returned. Expressionless, he boarded the plane again and sat back down in his original seat. I stopped. Sui Xiao raised his head and looked at me. Our eyes met. His gaze clearly dodged for a moment. There was a problem, and the problem was outside. I didn't ask and continued walking out with Sun Qian and Wang Wan. When I brushed past Sui Xiao, his lips moved, but in the end he said nothing. I had already reached the cabin door. Only then did he mutter softly, "It's fine. He'll come back." A few minutes later, I rushed back into the cabin with a dark expression. "Nobody go out yet." A short-haired girl I stopped frowned and asked, "What are you doing?" I glanced at Sui Xiao. This guy was still leaning against his seat, pretending nothing had happened. The airport exit is blocked. More than a dozen people in tracksuits are guarding it. The leader is a woman. Her voice is the same as the one from the broadcast earlier. The rest are probably all seniors responsible for chasing us. The cabin immediately fell into chaos. They've already blocked the exit? So fast. Then how are we supposed to leave? I stared fixedly at Sui Xiao. This guy's heart was truly black. He had clearly seen it. Yet when he came back, he didn't say a word. Sui Xiao coughed awkwardly. "I was going to warn you, but you ran too fast." Heh. I smiled at him. If I believed a single word, I'd lose. Two freshmen didn't listen to the warning. They looked at each other, then took advantage of the chaos in the cabin, put on their bracelets, and secretly slipped out. I didn't stop them. Good advice couldn't save people determined to feed themselves to the enemy. If they wanted to go, let them go. I walked up to Sui Xiao. I said nothing. I just stared at him. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Sui Xiao finally got annoyed by my stare. Am I nice to look at? Not bad. If you have something to say, say it. Nothing. Then why are you staring at me? I'm studying how black a person's heart can be. Sui Xiao's face darkened. He clearly wanted to retort, but seemed to remember something. In the end, he held back. I guess that Sui Hong had probably told him before boarding the plane to build a good relationship with me. But judging from his reaction, Sui Hong had not told him about my background. You saw the situation outside too. Sui Xiao got straight to the point. Want to join forces? Just the two of us. I pointed toward the airport exit. Can we beat that group outside? Sui Xiao looked at me like he was looking at an idiot. What are you thinking? He raised his hand and pointed at the other freshman. Add this bunch of trash. Then we should have a chance to break through. The cabin instantly went quiet. Then it exploded. Who are you calling trash? What are you acting all high and mighty for? If you're so capable, why did you come running back? You really think growing your hair long makes you somebody? A barrage of aggressive questions smashed toward Sui Xiao at the same time. A few of them were so emotional they had already started rolling up their sleeves. Sui Xiao was being attacked by everyone, but he didn't care at all. He leaned against his seat and lazily picked his ear. If you're not trash, what are you? Look at your faces right now. As soon as you heard the exit was blocked, each and every one of you panicked like this. Do you still look like geniuses at all? He swept his gaze across everyone, his eyes full of contempt. Being freshmen of Tian's Academy alongside you people, I feel embarrassed. I sucked in a cold breath and immediately took 2 steps back. I had to keep my distance from this kind of person. He was way too punchable. Everyone present was among the top geniuses from various cities in Yunnan who had ever suffered this kind of ridicule. Several freshmen had already stepped out from the crowd. Spiritual power surged. Just as they were about to attack, a skinny figure suddenly slipped between the two sides. Don't fight. Nobody fight. It was a yellow-haired boy. He wasn't tall and didn't look strong, but he was extremely calm. He first looked at the few people preparing to attack. This guy's name is Sui Xiao. He's the grandson of Yunnan Inspector Sui Hong. After awakening, he directly broke through to the martial master realm. Even if you few teamed up, you might not be able to beat him. If you really fight, you'll only give the seniors outside something to laugh at. As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed at the camera on the cabin ceiling. Everyone's expressions changed. Those seniors were very likely watching us through the surveillance cameras. The yellow-haired boy then turned to Sui Xiao. I know you're strong, but you've only just entered the martial master realm. If you really anger everyone here and we all attack you together, can you withstand it? At worst, both sides suffer. You get injured, and we get expelled. Then nobody gets to play. Sui Xiao curled his lips. Although unconvinced, he didn't continue mocking them. I looked at the yellow-haired boy and became interested. This guy had something to him. His strength might not be the greatest, but his brain worked fast. The next second, he took the initiative to walk up to me. You're Chenong from Nandu City? Yes. I nodded. You know me? Who in all of Yunnan doesn't know you now? The yellow-haired boy held out his hand. Let me introduce myself. Huang Xing, from Sanxia City, 7th level martial warrior. I shook his hand. Chen Ong, 2nd level martial master. The corner of Huang Xing's mouth twitched. I felt he didn't really want to hear the second half of that. He quickly adjusted himself and faced everyone. The last thing we should do right now is fight among ourselves. Everyone here is a genius from their respective city, and everyone has received an admission letter from Tian's Academy. No one wants to be sent back the moment they arrive in Shanjing, right? No one answered, but the tense atmosphere had clearly eased. Huang Xing continued. Sui Zhao's words were unpleasant, but there's one thing he was right about. We have to join forces and punch through their formation. The exit has already been blocked. If we act separately, we'll only be picked off one by one. When that happens, we won't even make it out of the airport. He looked at the people who had been preparing to attack earlier. No matter what grudges you have, set them aside for now. Once we get into Tian's Academy, settle whatever scores you want. Right now, get through this obstacle first. A short-haired girl asked, how do we cooperate? Huang Xing had clearly thought it through already. Gather everyone and punch through from the front. Our priority is breaking out. Absolutely do not get dragged into prolonged fighting. After saying this, he looked toward me and Sui Xiao. You two are martial masters. When the seniors outside encounter you, they can use 5th level martial master strength. You'll definitely receive special attention. But that's also an opportunity for everyone. We'll help divide their numbers. You step in when we can't hold on. Help each other, and whoever can escape, escapes. There was nothing wrong with that arrangement. I nodded. Works for me. With people helping me draw fire, why wouldn't I agree? Sui Xiao also stood up, still looking as annoyingly arrogant as ever. Since everyone agrees, let's go. We put on our bracelets and quickly walked out of the plane. At the same time, at the airport exit, a young man in a tracksuit was staring at a tablet. On the surveillance feed, we had already gathered together. Sister Yu, these freshmen are coming out. They're preparing to team up and break through. The woman standing at the very front was biting a lollipop. She was tall, her hair simply tied behind her head, and her face carried a lazy smile. Yu Qinghan, the senior girl from the broadcast earlier. She stretched lazily. Everyone hold back a little later. Just knock down their arrogance. Don't actually beat them too badly. The dozen or so young men and women behind her began loosening their limbs. Understood. Don't worry, Sister Yu. We love our juniors the most. Each of them smiled with ill intent. They looked exactly like wolves waiting for lambs to deliver themselves to the door. Before long, I led the freshmen to the airport exit. The two sides faced each other from dozens of meters apart. Yu Qinghan bit her lollipop and looked at me with a smile. I raised my hand and greeted her. Senior, we meet again. That's right. Yu Qinghan's voice was exactly the same as the one from the broadcast. She tilted her head and looked at me, her eyes teasing. Little Junior, why did you run so fast earlier? Senior hadn't finished speaking yet. Nonsense. If I didn't run, was I supposed to stay and get beaten? On the surface, however, I pretended to be obedient. I forgot to take something. What did you want to say to me earlier, Senior? I wanted to say. Yu Qinghan's mouth slowly opened and closed, but no sound came out. I frowned. Something was wrong. The next second, an extremely sharp sound exploded directly inside my mind. Ah! I suddenly covered my ears. Useless. That sound wasn't traveling through the air at all. It was directly attacking consciousness. Beside me, Sui Zhao's face also went pale and his body swayed. The freshmen behind us were even worse off. Several of them dropped to their knees on the spot, clutching their heads with both hands and letting out painful growls. I forcibly activated Azure Emperor. Open. Green light erupted from within me. In an instant, it spread into a barrier, enveloping everyone inside. The piercing sonic attack was weakened by the green light. Only then did everyone manage to catch their breath. Yu Qinghan raised an eyebrow. A healing type ability? Interesting. Unfortunately, your reaction was slow. She raised her hand. Go. More than a dozen seniors rushed forward at the same time. They were as fast as arrows loosed from a bowstring. Focus on breaking free. Don't get dragged into battle. Whoever can run, run. Huang Xing roared. Yellow sand surged out from his body, quickly condensing into a suit of heavy armor. He was the first to charge out of the green light barrier. But as soon as his foot stepped out, Yu Qinghan opened her mouth again. The piercing sound wave exploded instantly inside his brain. Huang Xing's body stiffened. Crap! A young man in a tracksuit had already rushed to his side. His right arm rapidly turned into refined steel. He threw a punch. Bang! Huang Xing was sent flying sideways. With a boom, he slammed into a distant wall. The wall cracked apart. He slid down along the wall and couldn't get back up for a long while. The corner of my eye twitched. First-level martial master? You call that first-level martial master? If that wall hadn't stopped him, Huang Xing would have flown at least another 10 meters. But thinking about it carefully, it made sense. Which person capable of entering Tian's academy wasn't a genius? These seniors had undergone years of training. Even if they suppressed their cultivation to first-level martial master, their combat power was definitely not comparable to that of an ordinary first-level martial master. That punch had probably still been held back. I raised my hand and sent out a streak of green light. The light landed on Huang Xing and quickly treated his injuries. You still dare get distracted? A voice came from in front of me. A high ponytail girl had already charged over. There was a smile at the corner of her mouth, but her attacks were terrifyingly vicious. Bang! A punch landed on my chest. I was forced 2 steps back, my chest burning with pain. Senior, we just met. No need to be so ruthless, right? I activated Azure Emperor. The bruise on my chest rapidly healed. At the same time, I sent healing toward another fallen freshman in the distance. The high ponytail girl's expression clearly turned unpleasant. You're fighting me and still dare heal others? Aren't you looking down on me a little too much? She charged again. Her fist shadows linked into a blur. I retreated while continuing to heal the others. If Senior wants to get angry, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. You. The high ponytail girl's attacks became even faster. In just a few seconds, several tears had been ripped into my clothes. But with a flash of green light, all my injuries rapidly recovered. I had to admit, this woman really was ruthless. Little Junior, do you only know how to take hits? I'm busy. Busy saving this bunch of trash? More or less. Then lie down. The high ponytail girl threw a heavy punch straight toward my face. Right then, Sun Qian's shout came from nearby. Chenong, help! I turned to look. Sun Qian was clutching one arm, her face pale. In front of her, in Wang Wen stood a young man holding a long spear. Cold air swirled around the spear shaft. The young man twisted his waist and swept the spear horizontally. This is as far as you go. I suddenly raised my hand and grabbed the high ponytail girl's fist. Her movements paused. Surprise flashed in her eyes. I had been defending the whole time. She clearly thought I was only good at healing. Senior, I'm done playing with you. I twisted my waist and swept out with a kick. The high ponytail girl immediately raised her arm to block. Bang! Her entire body was kicked flying by me. After landing, she quickly got up and looked at me in shock. During our exchange earlier, she had used 5th-level Martial Master strength, and I had only just broken through to Martial Master. I was even a healing type ability user. How could I kick her flying? I didn't give her time to think. Spiritual power erupted. I charged straight towards Sun Qian. Get lost. On the other side, Wang Wen's entire body bloomed with white light. A glazed jade crown condensed above his head. Facing the sweeping spear, he didn't retreat. Instead, he reached out and grabbed the spear shaft. Bang! Cold air exploded. Wang Wen's feet scraped across the ground, and he was pushed back several meters. But he never let go. Interesting. The spear-wielding young man pulled hard. The spear didn't move. Wang Wen stepped in close and threw a punch straight at his face. The young man tilted his head to dodge and raised his elbow to smash into Wang Wen's chest. That all. He had just revealed a smile when a voice suddenly came from behind him. Then let me show you something more interesting. The young man's body stiffened. He turned his head sharply. What entered his sight was a fist wrapped in blood-red aura. Tyrant. Bang. The fist struck him squarely in the face. Terrifying power erupted. Sun Qian, who stood beside them, had her hair blown backward by the aftershock. The young man flew sideways and crashed more than 10 meters away. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted on the spot. Even after collapsing, he couldn't understand it. Why was the fist of someone with the Azure Emperor ability so heavy? And he especially hadn't expected me to suddenly abandon my opponent and come after him instead. Meanwhile, the strength he had suppressed himself to was still only first-level martial master. Chenong, behind you. Sun Qian hurriedly warned me. Several figures were already charging toward us. I exhaled. Green light simultaneously enveloped Sun Qian and Wang Wan. Their injuries rapidly healed. I stood in front of them and raised my fists. Stay close to me. Brother Ong will lead you out. The seniors around us were all a little stunned. They clearly hadn't expected a freshman to be this fierce. Outside the airport exit, the lollipop in Yu Qinghan's mouth cracked as she bit it straight through. What's going on? Isn't he a wood-type healing ability user? Why is his close combat so strong? Science Academy had only given them the freshman name list and basic cultivation levels. It had not provided detailed files. So they didn't know that before I awakened my ability, my combat skills had already dominated everyone my age in Nandu. Yu Qinghan stared at me for a few seconds, then took out her phone. Hello. There's a situation on my end. She walked aside and quickly said a few words. At the same time, a furious roar sounded from the other side of the battlefield. You really think I'm easy to bully if I don't show my strength? I took a moment to glance back. I almost laughed out loud. Sui Xiao was suspended in midair. The ribbon tying his hair had disappeared. His long hair danced wildly in the spiritual energy. His image had originally been quite handsome. Provided you ignored the two black eyes, the swollen half of his face, and the blood currently flowing from his nostrils. 3 seniors surrounded him. They had clearly greeted his face quite enthusiastically earlier. Thunder punishment. Sui Xiao raised both hands. Boom. Purple thunder erupted from within his body. Within a radius of 5 meters, everything instantly turned into a sea of lightning. The 2 men and 1 woman surrounding him retreated at the same time. Thunder punishment. A combat skill evolved from Sui Xiao's SSS-Rank lightning-type ability after breaking through to Martial Master. When spiritualists were in the martial warrior realm, their abilities could usually only be used in basic ways. Only after breaking through to Martial Master would an ability truly evolve skills. This was also one of the biggest differences between martial masters and martial warriors. Sui Xiao stood in the center of the Thunder Sea. His long hair danced wildly. Electric arcs wrapped around his body. I couldn't help sighing. So handsome. If he didn't have those 2 black eyes, he'd be even more handsome. Shut up. Sui Xiao was so angry that the thunder around him violently fluctuated. I withdrew my gaze and forced back the young man charging toward me with a punch. The battle intent in my chest grew stronger and stronger. 5th level Martial Master? Nothing special. 5th level Martial Master can't stop me. The corner of my mouth tilted upward as I crooked a finger at the seniors in front of me. Who else? Oh, a gentle voice came from beside me. Then, what level Martial Master would be enough to stop you? My movement stiffened. Yu Qinghan had already arrived beside me. She smiled very kindly. I thought for a moment and deliberately left myself some room. At least 6th level. Good. Yu Qinghan nodded. Then 8th level. She turned and looked across the entire battlefield. Everyone listen up. For the next 7 days, whenever you encounter Qin Ong and Sui Xiao, you may raise your strength to 8th level Martial Master. The smile on my face vanished instantly. Wait, on what basis? Yu Qinghan waved the phone in her hand, which had not yet hung up. Sorry, Junior. Orders from above. I stared at her. She also looked at me with a smiling expression. I only added 1 level. You directly added 3? Was Science Academy's math taught by a PE teacher? The surrounding seniors turned their heads at the same time. One gaze after another landed on me and Sui Xiao, especially those boys I had hit earlier. Their eyes looked as though they had finally found their chance for revenge. Sun Qian silently hid behind me and tugged at the corner of my clothes. Chenong, I think you might be done for. What do you mean I'm done for? I swallowed. We're done for. If I get caught, you think you can run? Sun Qian thought about it seriously. How about we cut ties right now? Too late. I looked at Yu Qinghan. This woman spoke gently and softly, but her methods were darker than anyone's. Yu Qinghan hung up the phone, her eyes turning in thought. Changing the rules all of a sudden does seem a little inappropriate. I immediately nodded. Right, very inappropriate. So change it back. Yu Qinghan bent down, picked up a shoe from the ground that had come from who knew where, and threw it straight at me. Shut up. Let me finish. I dodged sideways. Fine. Please speak. Yu Qinghan sat on the security inspection counter beside her, swinging her legs. I'll give you 2 choices. First, the game continues. Second, she pointed at me and Sui Xiao. You 2 stay. Everyone else, I let go. Even the two freshmen whose bracelets were taken earlier, I can return their bracelets to them. She raised 3 fingers. 3 minutes. Choose for yourselves. Sui Xiao had just landed from midair. After hearing this, he immediately became unhappy. You're looking for trouble with Chenong. Why drag me into this? Yu Qinghan didn't even look at him. Because I want to. You? One more word, and I'll only keep you. I agree. I immediately raised my hand. Yu Qinghan and Sui Xiao turned their heads at the same time. Shut up. I scratched my head. Weren't you the ones who told me to choose? I swept my gaze around. The freshmen, who had been full of vigor just now, were now sitting all over the ground in sorry states. Each of them had bruised faces, and their spiritual power was nearly exhausted. If I hadn't healed them from time to time, at least half of them would already be lying down. But my control over Azure Emperor was still too weak. I heard that when my father activated Azure Emperor, everything within 100 li was within his healing range. As long as he did not fall, the soldiers behind him would find it very hard to die before him. As for me right now, I could barely maintain the injuries of 20-some people. The gap was too large. But it didn't matter. I would catch up to him, and even surpass him. I withdrew my thoughts and looked at Sun Qian and Wang Wen. Then I looked at Sui Xiao. Hey, interested in a cooperation between men? Sui Xiao frowned. What do you mean? I grinned. This type of arrogant person was the easiest to deal with. Just provoke him a little. Choose the second option. These people are too weak. If they keep staying here, they'll only drag us down. Let them leave first. We two stay behind and play with the seniors to the end. I stared at him. What? You don't dare? If you don't dare, forget it. Don't make me look down on you. Sui Xiao's face darkened. Cut the nonsense. What wouldn't I dare? 8th level martial master, that's all. Even if I can't beat them, they won't be able to keep me here. Really? What good would lying to you do me? Good. I immediately turned to Yu Qinghan. Second option. Let everyone else go. Sui Xiao and I will stay. Sui Xiao opened his mouth. He had a vague feeling that I had somehow led him into a ditch. Yu Qinghan jumped down from the security inspection counter and clapped with a smile. Not bad. You have courage. Senior appreciates you. She snapped her fingers. The group of high-year students moved aside one after another, opening a path. Sui Xiao looked at the battered freshman, his tone still not very pleasant. Why aren't you leaving yet? A bunch of people who only know how to drag others down. This time, no one talked back. Several freshmen stood up and nodded to us. Thank you. I'll remember this favor. If you ever need anything in the future, just say the word. Earlier, they had been unconvinced by Sui Xiao because he was arrogant. Now, they were able to leave because I and Sui Xiao had chosen to stay behind. One matter was one matter. Where's Huang Xing? The short-haired girl counted the people and suddenly realized one was missing. Yu Qinghan curled her lips. That yellow-haired kid ran off a while ago. After Chun Ong healed him earlier, he took advantage of the chaos and slipped out through the side door. Everyone froze for a moment. Then a wave of emotional cursing erupted. That guy ran way too fast. He talked about working together, but he was the first to slip away? Yu Qinghan crossed her arms. What's the problem? The plan you made at the beginning was to focus on escaping. He simply executed it better than you. I nodded. Enough. Stop cursing. Huang Xing didn't do anything wrong. Hurry up and go. Don't waste time. The freshmen stopped lingering. They supported each other and passed through the path. Sun Qian didn't move. If you stay, I'll stay too. Stop causing trouble. I pressed down on her head and turned her directly toward the exit. I'm not dragging you down. You're not. I looked at her seriously. That's why I need you to take Wang Wen out. Can't he walk by himself? Wang Wen immediately shook his head. I know the way. You shut up. I glared at him. Take her away. Wang Wen looked at me, then at Sun Qian. In the end, he nodded. Brother Chun, I'll wait for you up ahead. Good. Sun Qian still wanted to say something. I raised my hand and flicked her forehead. Don't worry. I said before, with me here, nothing unexpected will happen. But every time you say that, something unexpected happens. Not this time. Really. Fake. Hurry up and run. Sun Qian's emotions instantly erupted. She waved her fist at me, but in the end, she still followed Wang Wen and left. Once all the freshmen had gone far away, I twisted my neck. The bones in my body let out a series of cracks. With no more concerns, I could finally let loose. I looked at Yu Qinghan and the surrounding seniors. Senior, We can start. I had to take care of them earlier, so I never really stretched my hands and feet. I raised my right hand and beckoned at the other side. Now, I want to fight 10. The whole place went quiet. Yu Qinghan was directly amused into laughter by my words. Did you hear that? He said he wants to fight 10. The young man I had punched in the waist earlier was the first to step forward. He held his side, his face dark. His mouth unleashed an intense burst of angry scolding. This kid is way too arrogant. I can't take it anymore. He suddenly raised his foot and stomped heavily on the ground. Rumble. The entire airport exit shook violently. In the east, south, west, and north directions, a huge stone pillar rose at the same time. Muddy yellow spiritual power surged from the pillars. They connected with each other. In the blink of an eye, a sealed arena formed, enveloping everyone inside. The young man raised his hand and wiped the corner of his mouth, grinning at me. Kid, I'll play with you properly. Life and death cage. As his words fell, two muddy yellow beams of light descended from above the arena. One enveloped the young man. The other came crashing toward me. Bathed in the beam, the young man's aura rapidly climbed. He raised his head, revealing an expression of enjoyment. I, however, didn't dare to be careless. Azure Emperor was instantly activated. Green light covered my entire body, resisting the muddy yellow beam descending from above. I didn't believe for a second that he would kindly give me an enhancement. Sure enough, after the beam fell, the spiritual power inside my body clearly became heavy. My meridians felt as though chains had been pressed onto them. My speed, strength, and spiritual power circulation were all suppressed at the same time. Meanwhile, the young man opposite me had grown far stronger. Senior, I immediately looked at Yu Qinghan. He's cheating. That is absolutely more than 8th level martial master. Yu Qinghan smiled and waved her hand. No cheating. He himself is indeed only using 8th level martial master strength. The current boost comes from his ability skill. That doesn't count as breaking the rules. The corner of my mouth twitched. Technically, that logic made sense. But his current strength really had surpassed 8th level martial master. I could see it clearly now. These people were determined to teach us a lesson today. I object. Objection denied. Yu Qinghan's smile became even sweeter. However, since I'm beautiful and kind, I can give you another chance. She pointed at the young man in the arena. You and that pretty boy team up. As long as you can knock this senior down, I'll let you leave. Pretty boy. Sui Xiao suddenly raised his head. He pointed at himself, his face full of disbelief. You mean me? Laughter immediately rang out all around. Sui Xiao's face flushed instantly. Having long hair and a delicate face was his own business. But using that kind of label to provoke a man that had already stepped on his bottom line. Thunder began to dance around Sui Xiao. His fists clenched until they crackled. I silently moved beside him. She said that about you, and you can endure it? If it were me, I definitely couldn't. Sui Xiao looked at me coldly. Shut up. Don't think I don't know you're trying to drag me in. I spread my hands. But you're already in. From the moment he agreed to stay, we were grasshoppers on the same rope. Neither of us should even think about running. Yu Qinghan tilted her head. Well, do you two little juniors dare? Sui Xiao instantly lost his temper. Don't talk about him being boosted to the peak of martial master. Even if he were a great martial. My eyes were sharp and my hands were quick. I covered his mouth in one move. MMPH. Sui Xiao glared at me and struggled wildly. I held him down firmly. Stop bragging, brother. I'm scared. I was truly afraid he would finish that sentence. If Yu Qinghan suddenly said, then make it great martial master. The two of us would really be carried out today. Sui Xiao also reacted. Finally, he quieted down. I let go and looked at the young man in the arena. His aura was already approaching peak martial master. And he was absolutely not an ordinary peak martial master. Honestly, I looked at Sui Xiao. What are your odds of winning? Sui Xiao was silent for a few seconds. 30%. He paused, then added, assuming the opponent is only an ordinary peak martial master. But obviously, he isn't. I nodded. What if we don't consider injuries and fight with our lives? Sui Xiao turned to look at me. That gaze seemed to ask whether I was serious. Don't worry. I patted my chest. My healing is very strong. As long as you don't stop breathing on the spot, I can try to pull you back. What do you mean try? Don't mind the details. Sui Xiao took a deep breath and looked back at the arena. 50%. At most, 50%. His tone was clearly a little unsteady. I smiled. Enough. Sui Xiao frowned. What do you mean? You have 50%. I pointed at myself. I also have 50%. The two of us together. 100%. Sui Xiao stared at me blankly. For a long while, he said nothing. From his eyes, I could clearly read one sentence. Is that how you calculate it? I didn't give him a chance to question me and directly stepped into the arena. The muddy yellow beam descended. My whole body abruptly grew heavy. The young man opposite me grinned. Junior Chun, are you ready? I twisted my neck. Green light and blood energy surged inside my body at the same time. Senior, let me ask you something. What? I raised my fist. Tyrant's power wrapped around it bit by bit. Can you take a beating? 100% odds. The young man across from us couldn't hold back and laughed on the spot. He knocked his fists together, and his thick spiritual power shook the 4 stone pillars, causing them to shine at the same time. Then, you two juniors, are you ready? I've been ready. I rolled my shoulder and turned to look at Sui Xiao. I'll take the main offense. You support me. After saying that, I charged out directly. The tiles beneath my feet shattered with a boom. My entire body shot toward the young man like an arrow loosed from a bowstring. Sui Xiao froze in place, as if a row of question marks had popped up above his head. You take the main offense. You're Azure Emperor, and you want me, a lightning type, to support you? Cut the nonsense and keep up. You really think you're combat type? Although he questioned me verbally, Sui Xiao's movements were not slow. Thunder surged from within him, transforming into electric light as he followed closely behind me. The young man opposite us grinned. Good. Bang. He slammed his fists together. His muscles abruptly swelled, forcibly tearing apart his already damaged shirt. The next second, he punched toward me. Before his fist even arrived, the wind from the punch was already pressing against my face. Strong. If we collided head-on, I would most likely be sent flying. But I didn't dodge. If he dared trade injuries, why wouldn't I? I charged toward his fist, closed the distance, clenched my right hand, slightly protruded the knuckle of my middle finger, and drove it straight toward his heart. At the same time, I spoke in a low voice. Tyrant. Buzz. The blood-red power inside my body instantly awakened. Dense red patterns emerged from my chest and rapidly spread along my neck and arms. My strength skyrocketed in an instant. The young man's eyes changed. He clearly hadn't expected me, a healing-type ability user, to actually dare trade blows with him head-on. But now, it was too late to withdraw his fist. Bang! His fist slammed into my chest. My knuckle also smashed fiercely into his heart area. A violent collision rang through the arena. My chest tightened, and my whole body flew backward. Whoosh! Sui Xiao only felt something blur before his eyes. Immediately after, I flew sideways past him. Boom! My back slammed heavily into a stone pillar. The pillar shook, and broken rocks scattered. I fell to the ground. A small part of my chest had caved in, and blood leaked from the corner of my mouth. Chenong! Sui Xiao turned back instinctively. Don't look at me. I pushed myself up from the ground and roared. Look at him. At this moment, my eyes had already turned blood red. Blood-colored patterns crawled across my entire face, making me look especially ferocious. Azure Emperor circulated at the same time. Crack. My broken ribs rapidly returned to their proper positions. My caved-in chest rose back up. With a flash of green light, my injuries recovered completely. At the same time, I pushed off with my feet and charged back toward the battlefield. Sui Xiao suddenly turned around. A hand had already reached his neck. At some point, the young man had rushed to his side. His 5 fingers were spread, and dense spiritual power gathered in his palm. His face was slightly pale. That punch just now had not been without cost. The young man had originally thought that with the power of a peak martial master, I couldn't possibly injure him. That was why he had followed my intention and traded blows head-on. But when my punch landed, that suddenly erupting blood-colored power directly disrupted the flow of spiritual power inside his body. His heart felt as though it had been struck by a heavy hammer. Even now, his blood and chi were still surging violently. Damn it! Isn't this kid healing type? The young man was puzzled, but his movements did not pause in the slightest. Deal with Sui Xiao first. Thunder punishment. Sui Xiao's heart jolted. He suddenly spread both hands. Boom. Thunder erupted. Within a 5-meter radius, the area instantly turned into a purple sea of lightning. Bolts of lightning struck down toward the young man. But the young man did not retreat. He activated spiritual power to cover his entire body and endured the lightning head-on as he continued forward. Sui Zhao's expression changed. Thunder punishment was indeed very strong. But the gap in realm was right there. No matter how high one's talent was, without enough spiritual power, the skill's true might could not be unleashed. The young man's movements paused for only an instant before his hand continued grabbing forward. Sui Zhao wanted to dodge. But in the end, his battle experience could not compare to that of this senior. With a single feint, the opponent deceived his judgment. Smack! The young man's palm tightly clamped around Sui Zhao's neck. The thunder around Sui Zhao instantly scattered. His entire body was lifted on the spot. The young man's other hand formed a blade and subconsciously stabbed straight toward Sui Zhao's heart. The attack was fierce, without the slightest hesitation. Only when the palm blade was about to fall did he suddenly react. This was a freshman assessment, not a life-or-death battle. Almost forgot. The young man tilted his head and forcibly changed his attack. He lifted Sui Zhao and smashed him hard into the ground. Bang! The ground cracked. Sui Zhao lay on his back inside the pit, eyes wide open, feeling as though every bone in his body had almost been shattered by the impact. He hadn't lied to me. If it were a true life-or-death fight, he did indeed have a 50% chance of killing an ordinary peak martial master. But the prerequisite was using the life-saving trump cards his family had given him, and the opponent couldn't be too strong. The young man before us was clearly not within the category of ordinary. If he weren't outstanding, he wouldn't be qualified to enter Tian's Academy either. The young man bent down and reached for Sui Zhao's smart bracelet. Just as his fingers were about to touch the bracelet, his expression suddenly changed. He did not look back. Instead, he instinctively retreated explosively. Boom! A fist shadow grazed past his face and landed. The fist wind tore through the ground. The young man retreated 10 meters away, a trace of curiosity appearing in his eyes. Pretty fast reaction. I stood beside Sui Zhao and slowly withdrew my fist. The young man stared at the blood-colored patterns on my face. What exactly is your ability? Azure Emperor. I pulled Sui Zhao out of the pit and answered with a smile. The whole place went quiet for a moment. What? The young man suspected he had heard wrong. Even Yu Qinghan and the others in the distance were stunned at the same time. Sui Zhao abruptly turned his head as well. Your ability is Azure Emperor? Yeah. I shrugged. Green light surged out of my body and enveloped both me and Sui Zhao. Under Azure Emperor's healing, the displaced bones inside Sui Zhao's body quickly returned to place, and his torn muscles also began to recover. He inhaled sharply. The shock in his eyes still did not fade. Wasn't the previous Azure Emperor General Qin Zhonglin? We'll talk about that later. I patted his shoulder. Now isn't the time to discuss abilities. But your close combat really is a little weak. Sui Zhao immediately shook off my hand. Who's weak? It's clearly because the gap in realm is too large. My combat class rating is grade A. Oh, I looked enlightened. No wonder. What do you mean? I'm praising you. You think I believe that? The young man in the distance interrupted us. When Azure Emperor is used, it does indeed produce green life force. But what about the red patterns on your body? He pointed at my face. That is definitely ability manifestation. I don't remember Azure Emperor having that kind of power. I smiled. Senior, who said a person can only have one ability? What? The young man froze. Sui Zhao also stiffened in place. The high-year students watching from outside the arena collectively fell silent. One person could only awaken one ability. That was common knowledge recognized across Blue Star. Since the appearance of abilities, no one had ever broken that rule. But I had indeed used Azure Emperor just now. The speed at which my injuries recovered was clear for all to see. At the same time, the power boost brought by those red patterns was absolutely not a simple talent enhancement. Two kinds of power. Two manifestations. Could it really be dual abilities? One person awakening two abilities. Yu Qinghan slowly took out her phone. This time, it seems we really played too big. I didn't give them time to keep staring blankly. All right, I'm a little hungry. Let's hurry up and end this. I stretched lazily and casually pushed Sui Zhao, who was still leaning on me, away. Your injuries are healed. Why are you still leaning on me? I. Sui Xiao stood up straight, pursed his lips, and said nothing. I slowly spread my arms. Green light and blood-colored aura rose simultaneously from either side of my body. Formal introduction. My second ability. Xingtian. As those two words fell, the blood-colored aura suddenly surged. The temperature inside the entire arena seemed to drop by several degrees. When I awakened, this was the first one I awakened. My theoretical grades are very good. I remember every recorded high-level ability on all of Blue Star. But I've never seen Xingtian before. I raised my hand. The blood-colored patterns moved slowly across the surface of my skin like living creatures. To be honest, I was indeed panicked at that time. I waited 18 years. Worked hard for 18 years. I was afraid what I had awakened was some unknown, useless ability no one recognized. I was even more afraid that over 10 years of persistence would end up being nothing but a joke. I clenched my fist. But at that moment, Azure Emperor appeared. In that instant, I seemed to see a divine tree that covered the heavens and blocked out the sun. Green light enveloped heaven and earth. Grass and trees grew again upon scorched land. Barren mountains regained vitality. Dying people opened their eyes once more. Of course I knew what it was. SSS-Rank ability, Azure Emperor. Across all of Blue Star, the abilities that can stand shoulder to shoulder with it can be counted on 2 hands. I looked at the young man opposite me, the corners of my mouth gradually rising. But after Azure Emperor entered my body, the first thing it did wasn't merge. It hid. It was hiding from Xingtian. The smile on the young man's face disappeared completely. I continued. From that moment, I knew. Xingtian wasn't trash. It might even be in existence above Azure Emperor. It told me that it belongs to the combat system. It wants conquest. It wants slaughter. It wants to suppress every enemy standing before me. The blood-colored aura exploded. Meeting everyone's gaze, I spoke word by word. It is the king of combat-type abilities. So, I named it Xingtian. My voice echoed through the arena. For a long time, it did not fade. I twisted my neck and looked at the young man opposite me. Senior, are you ready? Huh. The young man clearly had not yet recovered from the shock of dual abilities. I had already grabbed the hem of my shirt and pulled it off directly. My upper body was exposed. Scars crisscrossed it. Nandu First High had long-term cooperation with the Spirit Investigation Bureau. Every year, the Spirit Investigation Bureau would take out a batch of missions involving the pursuit of criminal spiritualists and give students the chance to participate. Teachers were responsible for leading the teams. Students were responsible for real combat. Of course, there was danger. The mortality rate wasn't zero either. So before participating in missions, everyone had to sign a liability waiver. And among all students, I had participated the most times. Even the 2nd through 10th place combined could barely match me. 3 times, I almost failed to come back alive. This body full of scars was what those missions left behind. The most dangerous scar was on my chest, 2 or 3 centimeters long, made by a dagger stab. It had missed my heart by only a little. These scars could actually be repaired, but I didn't let the doctors treat them. On one hand, they reminded me what I had gone through. On the other hand, they were indeed very suitable for showing off. The young man looked at the scars on my body and was silent for a short moment. Then he asked in confusion, "Before you people from Nandu fight, do you have to take off your clothes first?" My movements froze. The atmosphere suddenly seemed a little awkward. The young man suddenly understood. "Got it. I'll satisfy you." He grabbed his shirt, which had already been torn apart by his muscles, and ripped it open. Ryup. The ruined shirt was thrown aside. The young man's muscular upper body was completely exposed. I sucked in a cold breath. He had even more scars than I did. Dense and numerous, almost making it impossible to see the original skin. The most terrifying one stretched from his collarbone all the way down to his lower abdomen, as though he had been torn open by the claws of some giant beast. I silently glanced at the shirt he had thrown onto the ground. I suddenly kind of wanted to pick it back up and put it on myself. Miscalculation. This attempt to show off hadn't succeeded. Instead, I'd been overshadowed. Let's finish this quickly. I forcibly pretended nothing had happened and stomped on the ground. Dominion. Boom. The first skill evolved by Xingtian activated instantly. Complicated blood-colored patterns spread crazily across the broken floor tiles with me at the center. 1 meter, 10 meters, 100 meters. In the blink of an eye, a huge hexagonal pattern covered the airport exit. Everything within a radius of 500 meters had become my domain. Once Dominion was activated, all people and objects within the domain would be suppressed by me. Of course, I could choose to exclude certain targets. For example, Sui Xiao. As for the young man opposite us, the spiritual power inside his body instantly stagnated. There were even signs of it flowing backward. The young man's expression changed slightly. The 4 stone pillars outside the arena continuously released power, trying to provide him with enhancement. But as soon as that spiritual power entered his body, it was affected by dominion and became chaotic and violent. The stronger the enhancement, the harsher the backlash. What the hell kind of skill is this? The young man forcibly suppressed his spiritual power. I had already disappeared from where I stood. Bang! A deep pit exploded beneath my feet. In the blink of an eye, I appeared in front of the young man. My blood-colored fist shot straight toward his head. The young man tilted his head and dodged. The fist wind brushed past his ear and slammed into the stone pillar behind him. The stone pillar shook violently. Before he could stabilize himself, my voice had already sounded from behind him. "Senior, turn around." The young man didn't turn his head. His body suddenly sank. My high sweeping kick brushed over the top of his head. He rushed forward several meters and quickly turned around. Whoosh! A bolt of lightning had already arrived in front of his chest. Between Sui Zhao's hands, at some point, a longbow made of thunder had appeared. The bowstring vibrated. A lightning arrow shot straight toward the young man's back. The young man reached back and grabbed. Smack! The lightning arrow was caught in his palm. "With this level of attack, you think you can hurt me?" Sui Zhao did not answer. He only sneered. The young man sensed something wrong and lowered his head to look at his palm. The lightning arrow had already dispersed. It transformed into countless fine currents that flowed along his arm and throughout his body. Crackle! The young man's body stiffened. Chenong! Sui Zhao moved rapidly through the air. I paralyzed him. Got it. I rushed in from the side, pushed off with both legs, and leapt high into the air. My hands clasped together like a heavy hammer, smashing straight toward the young man's head. Feeling the numbness spreading through his body, the young man no longer had time to dodge. He erupted into a furious shout and crossed both arms, forcibly enduring the attack. Boom! My fist smashed down. The ground beneath the young man's feet instantly collapsed. At the same time, Sui Zhao drew the thunder bow again. One arrow after another. Thunder kept falling. Whenever the young man forced me back, lightning arrows would shoot from blind spots. When he turned to attack Sui Zhao, I immediately closed in again. I was responsible for frontal suppression. Sui Zhao was responsible for harassment, paralysis, and searching for openings. Azure Emperor continuously healed our injuries. Xingtian continuously weakened our opponent. The two abilities worked together for the first time in a true sense. The effect was even stronger than I had imagined. The high-year students outside the arena were already dumbfounded. They're really fighting Zhao Ke back and forth. Those two only just awakened, right? The main reason is Chenong. He can fight, suppress, and heal 2 people at the same time. How are you supposed to fight that? Zhao Ke won't actually lose, will he? Yu Qinghan had no attention to spare for the discussion. She held her phone, her fingers typing rapidly. One message after another was sent out. Very soon, her phone began vibrating wildly. The academy called directly. Yu Qinghan walked aside and answered. From the phone, the voices of several academy leaders overlapped in chaos. Confirmed it's Azure Emperor? What about the second ability? Xingtian was named by him personally? Lock down the information immediately. Don't let that child leave your sight. Raise the assessment standard. Wait first, regarding his father's matter. Yu Qinghan's expression turned serious for the first time. I'm at the scene. Azure Emperor has already been confirmed. The second ability can basically be confirmed as well. He has activated an area-type suppression skill and is currently fighting Zhao Ke. Someone on the other end of the phone immediately asked, "What's the result?" "They're still fighting." Boom. A huge sound came from the center of the arena. Yu Qinghan suddenly turned her head. Zhao Ke had been punched in the chest, and his entire body flew backward. At the same time, Sui Zhao descended from the sky. Thunder punishment. A pillar of lightning struck Zhao Ke squarely in the back. Bang! Zhao Ke crashed heavily onto the ground. All the tiles beneath him shattered. He clutched his chest and struggled to get up. Whoosh! Sui Xiao had already landed in front of him. A thunder sword was placed against his neck. His long hair drifted. His expression was proud. You lost. Zhao Ke was stunned. He looked at Sui Xiao, then at me in the distance. Wait, why was Sui Xiao the one posing like the victor at the end? Was he the one who had beaten him into this state? Yu Qinghan was silent for 2 seconds before speaking into the phone. Zhao Ke lost. Inside the arena, blood-red mist still drifted around me. Battle intent surged in my eyes. Senior, can you still continue? Exhilarating. This was too exhilarating. Azure Emperor combined with Xingtian was practically born for close combat. Trading injuries. Fighting while recovering. As long as my spiritual power wasn't exhausted, I didn't have to worry about my body failing to withstand the strain. Zhao Ke looked at me and finally shook his head. No more. I admit defeat. He raised his hand and pushed away Sui Zhao's lightning sword, then coldly glanced at him. If you look at me with that expression again, for the next 7 days, I won't do anything else. I'll focus entirely on beating you up. Sui Zhao's expression stiffened slightly. Sir Loser, I lost to Chenong. What does that have to do with you? We won together. Was that final sword strike yours? I restrained you. Say one more word? Zhao Ke was indeed quite irritated. If Sui Xiao hadn't kept interfering from behind with lightning arrows and disrupting his battle rhythm, he would not have lost so quickly. However, the thunder punishment Sui Xiao unleashed at the end was indeed powerful. With the cultivation of a first-level martial master, he had forcefully endured Zhao Ke's full power attacks for more than 10 seconds, creating the final attack opportunity for me. But that didn't stop Zhao Ke from wanting to beat him up. I stood beside them, appearing relaxed on the surface, but secretly let out a breath in my heart. That was close. Don't be fooled by the fact that I looked like I could still continue. In reality, I was almost unable to hold on. My cultivation was only second-level martial master, but Dominion's consumption was terrifyingly high. After maintaining it for so long, the spiritual power in my Dantian had nearly bottomed out. Zhao Ke's ability leaned more toward team coordination and was not suited for one-on-one combat. If we had faced a pure combat-type ability user, and the fight dragged on for another 10 minutes, Sui Xiao and I would have been beaten down completely. But a win was a win. Of course, I couldn't show weakness. I dispelled Dominion, and the blood-colored patterns slowly faded. Then I turned to look at Yu Qinghan. Senior Zhao has already admitted defeat. We can leave now, right? Yu Qinghan had already hung up the phone. She walked toward me with a solemn expression. I instinctively covered my ears. Then I quickly lowered my hands again. Her sonic attack directly affected consciousness. Covering my ears was completely useless. Yu Qinghan arrived in front of me. Without saying a word, she stared at me. Her stare made my scalp tingle. Senior. The next second, she suddenly smiled like a blooming flower. Of course you can. Senior always keeps her word. Just as I was about to relax, she continued. However, you'd better run fast. I'll only give you 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we'll continue the pursuit. The smile on my face froze. Didn't you say you'd let us leave? Yes. Yu Qinghan nodded. I'm letting you leave right now. But the welcoming ceremony isn't over yet. She waved her phone. And your performance was far too outstanding. So Senior has decided to personally lead 10 people to chase you. How about it? Are you moved? I looked at that gentle smiling face of hers. A long string of highly aggressive evaluations instantly surged through my heart. This woman had no martial ethics. Moved. I squeezed out 2 words through gritted teeth. Very moved. Senior knew you'd like it. Yu Qinghan waved her hand. The timer starts now. See you in 30 minutes. I grabbed Sui Xiao. Run. We rushed out of the airport. But as soon as we got outside, I stopped. Sun Qian and Wang Wen were crouching behind a pillar. When they saw me come out, their eyes lit up at the same time. Chenong, I knew you could get out. Sun Qian proudly placed her hands on her waist and turned to look at Wang Wen. Well, was I right? Wang Wen nodded heavily. He looked at me with eyes full of admiration. I, however, was completely numb. Wait. I told you to leave first. What are you hiding here for? To wait for you. Sun Qian said it as if it were only natural. What if you got caught? Then we'd go in and save you. With just you two? Mainly him. Sun Qian pointed at Wang Wen. Wang Wen blinked. Mainly, Brother Chun came out by himself. Very good. A perfect plan. Just as I was about to speak, Sui Xiao had already turned around. Enough. Since we're out, our alliance ends here. He tidied his messy long hair and recovered that proud look. Next, you take your path, and I'll take mine. See you at Tian's Academy. After saying that, he was about to leave. I grabbed his clothes. Where are you going? Leaving. Why alone? We're already out. Sui Xiao raised his chin. The cooperation naturally ends here. I didn't let go. I just stared at him. Sui Xiao's gaze clearly panicked for a moment, but he still forced himself to remain calm. Why are you looking at me? I knew what he was thinking. Yu Qinghan had clearly said that after 30 minutes, she would personally lead 10 people to chase me. Traveling with me now was equivalent to actively attracting firepower. Of course, Sui Xiao wanted to run. As for whether I would be caught, what did that have to do with him? If the two of us work together, we still have the strength to fight them. I held onto his clothes tightly. If we split up, we'll both be defeated one by one. You think I believe that? It's the truth. Then let go of my clothes first. No, I really hadn't expected Sun Qian and Wang Wen to stay behind and wait for me. Now, if Sui Xiao ran too, I definitely wouldn't get far while dragging these two along. With Sui Xiao around, at least we could maneuver a little. Sui Xiao stared at me. With me added, we can definitely escape? Not necessarily. Then why are you dragging me along? If we're going down, we go down together. What did you say? I said, unity is strength. I pulled him forward and ran. Let's go. Think while running. 30 minutes. No time to waste. There were no taxi drivers waiting around the airport area. We could only follow the route indicated by the bracelet and sprint all the way. After we left, Yu Qinghan sat back on the security inspection counter. She had a new lollipop in her mouth and was idly playing with her phone. But in her mind, the vice dean's words from earlier kept echoing. Chen Jinglin's son. Dual abilities. Azure Emperor. Xingtian. Martial master upon awakening. Most importantly, someone from the upper ranks of the Celestial Empire had personally spoken. Chenang's safety must be guaranteed. This background was indeed frightening. Half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. A young man holding a tablet walked up to Yu Qinghan. Sister Yu. Time's up. Yu Qinghan jumped down from the security inspection counter and snapped her fingers. Activate bracelet positioning. Begin catching children. Move. A group of high-year students rushed out of the airport. At some point, dozens of cars had been parked outside. The license plates all began with the character Su. Everyone quickly split up and got into the cars. One car after another started and drove off in the direction the freshmen had left. At the same time, on a main road in the outskirts of Shanjing, a battered old van was weaving crazily through traffic. Turning left. Charging right. Overtaking continuously. Its speed was terrifying. The driver was a rugged middle-aged man. He had a cigarette in his mouth and spoke with a thick Shanjing accent. Youngsters, are you satisfied with this speed? Satisfied. I gripped the handle tightly and forced myself to stay calm. Sui Zhao's face had already gone pale. He grabbed the overhead handle, his voice tense. Chenong, how about we ask Uncle to slow down a little? No. I looked at the scenery rapidly retreating outside the window. I was also feeling uneasy inside, but I refused to admit it. This is a matter of life and death. How can we slow down? But this really might cost lives. Then we still have to keep moving forward. Sun Qian and Wang Wen sat in the back row. Their faces didn't look too good either. After running out of the airport area, we had finally managed to stop this van taking passengers by the roadside. I directly pulled out 1,000 yuan. I had only one requirement. Drive as fast as possible. At first, the driver had been unwilling. He said that no matter how much money we gave him, he couldn't joke around with passenger safety. With no other choice, I could only make up a well-intentioned lie. At the time, I had held the driver's hand. Uncle, please help us. We can pay extra. The driver shook his head repeatedly. No. If I drive too fast and something happens, what then? I sighed deeply. To be honest, my friend's grandfather is critically ill. The doctor said the old man is about to pass. We're accompanying him to see his grandfather one last time. Sui Xiao froze on the spot. The driver was also silent for a moment. But in the end, he still shook his head. Even then, we can't act recklessly. I can only go as fast as possible. I lowered my head, my mood quickly turning heavy. I understand. It's just a pity for the old man. He spent his whole life working for the Celestial Empire. And in the end, he may not even get to see his own grandson. The driver's expression turned solemn. The old man is? I was stumped. After a brief moment of thought, I pointed at Sui Xiao. His grandfather. Yunnan Inspector, Sui Hong. Sui Xiao's eyes widened instantly, and he let out a furious question. I quickly signaled with my eyes. Cooperate. Otherwise we all get caught. The driver also found it strange. The dignified Yunnan inspector was critically ill, but not a single bit of news had spread. But after Sui Xiao was forced to take out proof of identity, the driver no longer had any doubts. Hurry up and get in. He must see him one last time. And so, the current scene came about. The driver put out his cigarette, his gaze becoming even more focused. Everyone sit tight. I'll raise the speed again. Raise it again. Sui Xiao's voice changed. The next second, the van suddenly accelerated. The engine let out an overwhelmed roar. The scenery on both sides completely blurred into streaks. Sui Xiao turned and glared at me. There was only one sentence in his eyes. This is all your fault. I guiltily looked away. I hadn't expected this uncle to be so loyal. Just as we entered Shangjing's urban area, 2 Tiance Academy cars also caught up from behind. Inside one of the cars, the young man responsible for monitoring the positioning stared at the tablet. For red dots were moving crazily across the map. The corner of his mouth twitched. Sister you. They've already entered the urban area. This speed. Are they riding a missile? Yu Qinghan looked at the surveillance screen. A battered van roared past an intersection. She merely blinked once, and only 2 taillights were left in the screen. Speed up. Yu Qinghan looked at the driver. You're not telling me you can't even catch up to a van, are you? The young man driving immediately became unconvinced. Sister you may question my strength, but please do not question my title as Tiance Academy's #1 racer. The corner of his mouth slowly lifted. Allow me to embarrass myself. Boom. The car suddenly accelerated. On the other side, the van had already rushed into the traffic-heavy urban district. Twice in a row, the body of the van brushed closely past other vehicles. My heart nearly jumped out of my throat. No more. Uncle, slow down. I finally couldn't maintain my calm anymore. This is the city. It's unsafe to drive this fast. And we're seriously speeding. If the traffic police notice us, we're all done for. The driver let out a hearty laugh. What are you afraid of? I'm handling business for Inspector Sui. Who can investigate me? Who would dare investigate me? The inside of the car fell instantly silent. The 4 of us quickly exchanged glances. Sui Xiao stared fixedly at me. Look at what you did. I returned an innocent gaze. I didn't know things would develop like this either. Sun Qian's face was pale. Should we confess? Wang Wen nodded heavily. I agree. Sui Xiao took a deep breath and slowly spoke. Uncle. Actually, my grandfather. Boom. The roar of an engine suddenly came from behind. 2 cars with license plates beginning with Su shot out from the traffic and rapidly approached. I looked back and my expression changed sharply. Not good. The seniors caught up. Through the rearview mirror, the driver saw those 2 cars. Then he looked at their special license plates. Tiance Academy? Why are they chasing you? The 4 of us fell silent again. The driver's gaze gradually became suspicious. Sui Xiao immediately pointed at me. Ask him. He made it all up. What critical illness? My grandfather is perfectly healthy. The driver suddenly turned to look at me. Uncle, watch the road. I was so frightened that I quickly grabbed the steering wheel. The van shook violently and nearly crashed into the guardrail. The driver regained control of the vehicle, his emotions quickly becoming agitated. You lied to me? Please listen to my explanation. Inspector Sui is completely fine? At present, yes. Then what about seeing him one last time? Eventually, there will be one. Chenong. Sui Xiao completely lost control. The driver's face also darkened. Stop the car. I'll let you off right now. Uncle, the people behind are about to catch up. What does that have to do with me? Uncle, it's Tiance Academy's assessment. Son, Qian hurriedly explained. We're participating in the freshman assessment. The cars behind us belong to seniors. If they catch us, we'll lose our admission qualification. The driver's hands on the steering wheel paused. You're freshmen of Tiance Academy? Yes. We all nodded together. The driver looked at Sui Xiao again. You really are Inspector Sui's grandson? Sui Xiao said with a dark face. Yes. Then your grandfather. He's very much alive. The driver was silent for 2 seconds. Then he stomped on the accelerator. Boom. The van accelerated again. The four of us leaned backward at the same time. I quickly grabbed the handle. Uncle, you're not angry anymore. Of course I'm angry. The driver gritted his teeth. I'll settle accounts with you after the assessment is over. But right now, he stared at the vehicles rapidly approaching in the rearview mirror, and the corner of his mouth slowly rose. Once you're in my car, how could I let others catch up? If that happened, how would I keep taking passengers in Shangjing? The driver shifted gears. The accelerator was pressed to the floor. Sit tight. Today, I'll let those little brats from Tian's Academy witness what the Shangjing god of cars means. I lowered my head and looked at the bracelet. A new notification had just popped up on the screen. All freshmen who have entered the urban district may not disturb city order. You may not use any means of transportation. You may not reveal your strength in front of ordinary people. Violators will have their admission qualifications revoked. The welcoming personnel must also follow the above regulations. I read those lines back and forth twice, my brows furrowing more and more deeply. Why does this rule feel like it's targeting us? Tian's Academy was located on the easternmost side of Shangjing. The airport we had come from was on the westernmost side. Now we couldn't use spiritual power to travel, nor could we take transportation. If we relied only on our legs, how long would we have to run? We're done. Sun Qian also finished reading the notice. The academy won't let us ride in the car. Wang Wen leaned against the window, looking helpless. This welcoming ceremony is way too hardcore. Welcoming ceremony? Sui Xiao sneered. You really believe that? This is an entrance assessment. It's specifically meant to deal with freshmen like us. The driver couldn't understand our Yunnan dialect, so he could only observe through the rearview mirror. What are you chatting about? Don't worry. The city is just a little congested. Relax. I guarantee I'll get you to see the old man one last time. The car fell instantly silent. I looked at that serious face in the rearview mirror. I opened my mouth several times, but I didn't know how to explain. Was I supposed to tell him Inspector Sui had suddenly recovered? No, that would insult his intelligence too much. But if we kept riding, we would directly violate the rules. Just as I was racking my brains for an excuse, the van suddenly made a sharp turn. Screech. The tires scraped against the ground. The driver slammed on the brakes. You trying to die? If you want to throw your life away, don't drag your uncle into it. The four of us lurched forward at the same time. Wang Wen had it worst. His forehead slammed against the car window with a bang. Hiss. I shook my head and looked up ahead. A black sedan was parked sideways in the middle of the road. Its license plate began with the character Su. My heart jolted. Immediately after, the car doors opened. Yu Qinghan stepped out with several high-year students. Run. I didn't give the others time to react. I directly opened the car door and grabbed Sun Qian. Get out. Sun Qian and I rushed out first. When Sui Xiao saw Yu Qinghan clearly, his expression changed as well. He shoved Wang Wen, who was still rubbing his head, out through the door. The four of us broke into a sprint. What's this supposed to mean? The driver got out of the van too. He pointed at Yu Qinghan and the others, emotionally questioning them. You think numbers make you impressive? Do you know who was sitting in my car? After saying that, he turned back to look. The car was empty. Hey, you lads, where are you going? Hearing his shout, we ran even faster. If we didn't run now, were we supposed to go back and explain exactly when Sui Hong had become critically ill? Still, the driver probably wouldn't be implicated. Before getting in, I had specifically recorded a video. In the video, I admitted that I had asked him to speed up and that all responsibility would be borne by me. Sui Xiao was also in the video. The biological grandson of the Yunnan inspector should have at least some face. Behind us, Yu Qinghan left 2 people to handle the scene, then led the rest after us. One of the young men who stayed behind took out an ID and handed it to the driver. Shangjing Spirit Investigation General Bureau. The people just now are newly joined members of the Spirit Investigation Bureau. We're currently conducting an assessment on them. We will be responsible for any losses caused to you by this operation. The young man took 3 stacks of cash from the car. This is compensation. Please do not disclose what happened today. The driver looked at the ID, then at the 30,000 yuan in his hand. His entire body went blank. When he drove away, he still hadn't recovered. He had raced through Shangjing. Not only was he not punished, he had even received 30,000? Another young man in the passenger seat couldn't help teasing. You're really generous. 30,000, just like that. The young man driving smiled. They're all future juniors. When I think about how they'll be tormented by us over the next few days, I do feel a little sorry for them. It's just 30,000. Consider it accumulating virtue for them. Night completely enveloped Shangjing. Neon lights spread across the streets. The passing crowds were neatly dressed and hurried along. On everyone's face was an unconcealable exhaustion. It seemed that once one entered this city, time automatically sped up. For example, us right now. The four of us were sprinting wildly down the street. Behind us, more than a dozen people were chasing us unhurriedly. Why do I feel like they're playing with us? Sui Xiao panted while running. I glanced back. Yu Qinghan had a lollipop in her mouth and was leading a group of people, following slowly behind. The smile on her face was as teasing as it could possibly be. It's not that you feel that way. They really are playing with us. Then why aren't they attacking? Didn't you read the bracelet notification? I pointed at the pedestrians on the street. There are too many ordinary people here. They can't reveal their strength either. Sun Qian looked at the time. It's almost 10 at night. If this drags on, there will be fewer and fewer people on the street. Won't we become turtles trapped in a jar? I turned and glared at her. That expression is a turtle in a pot. I told you a long time ago not to sleep during cultural classes. At a time like this, you're correcting that? If I don't correct you, you'll say it wrong next time too. Chenong, stop arguing. I quickly observed the streets on both sides. We couldn't escape head-on. The pursuers behind us were clearly waiting for the number of pedestrians to decrease. Once the streets quieted down, they would definitely make a move. At that moment, at the corner ahead, a red and blue building entered my vision. My eyes lit up. A branch office of the Spirit Investigation Bureau. I have an idea. Follow me. I suddenly accelerated and led the three of them straight toward that building. Yu Qinghan behind us seemed to guess what I was going to do, and her footsteps clearly paused. But I didn't give her time to react. I rushed into the Spirit Investigation Bureau lobby and immediately shouted, "Officer, help! A gang is chasing us." In the lobby, a middle-aged officer was sitting at his workstation clipping his nails. My shout scared him so badly that his whole body trembled. The nail clipper in his hand flew away. What's going on? He stood up and walked out of his workstation, frowning as he looked at us. I supported myself on my knees and deliberately panted as though I couldn't catch my breath. Outside, there are people chasing us. More than a dozen of them. They're wearing the same clothes. They don't look like good people at all. The middle-aged officer's face darkened. A gang. Yes. Extremely arrogant. He quickly walked outside. With one glance, he saw Yu Qinghan and the others in matching tracksuits. Outside the Spirit Investigation Bureau, several high-year students were also a little dumbfounded. Sister Yu, what do we do? Yu Qinghan bit through the lollipop in her mouth. She probably hadn't expected me to rush into the Spirit Investigation Bureau and ask for protection. Where's Li Xiang? Isn't he officially attached to the Shangjing Spirit Investigation General Bureau? He hasn't come back yet after dealing with the driver earlier. I'll call him. The young man had just taken out his phone when the middle-aged officer had already walked out the front door. Spiritual power released from his body. You lot, stand where you are. Don't move. All of you will undergo inspection. Yu Qinghan and the others could only stop. They couldn't very well run away in front of ordinary Spirit Investigation Bureau officers. Inside the lobby, I saw the middle-aged officer put his attention outside and immediately tugged Sui Xiao. Go. Sun Qian turned and ran toward the front door. I grabbed her. You want to run straight into their net. Then where do we go? The back courtyard. Climb the wall. While the staff members were all drawn by the commotion outside, we quickly slipped into the back courtyard. As soon as we reached the wall, an officer preparing to change shifts walked over. What are you doing? I immediately stopped, panic reappearing on my face. There's a gang outside chasing us. Officer Liu told us to hide in the back for a while. Luckily, I had glanced at the nameplate on the middle-aged officer's chest earlier. His surname was Liu. The young officer's eyes widened. A gang. In Shangjing, there are still gangs bold enough to chase people into the Spirit Investigation Bureau? He clearly didn't believe it. But since it was a serious matter, he immediately pressed the assembly button. You stay here. Don't run around. We'll need your cooperation with the investigation afterward. The four of us nodded crazily. Understood. We absolutely won't move. Please rest assured. The officer quickly rushed toward the front hall. Once his figure disappeared, I immediately turned around. Run! We arrived beneath the courtyard wall. Just as Sui Xiao was about to climb over, I grabbed his arm. Throw this away first. I pointed at his smart bracelet. Sui Xiao frowned. Why? There's positioning inside. How do you know? Guessed. Ever since the van was accurately intercepted, I had felt something was wrong. We had already left the airport very far behind. Yu Qinghan didn't have a dog's nose. How could she accurately find us every time? After jumping out of the van, we had changed streets several times. Yet we still couldn't shake them off. There was only one explanation. The bracelets. They can track these things. Sui Xiao reacted and immediately took off his bracelet. Wang Wen was somewhat hesitant. But senior, you said. The bracelet affects whether we pass the assessment. Without the bracelet, we'll be eliminated. Fake. I directly pulled off my own bracelet. She's creating pressure for us. Think about it. What strength does Yu Qinghan's group have? If they really pursued us at full power according to the rules, among the 27 of us, who could escape? The three of them fell silent at the same time. I threw my bracelet into the corner by the wall. Tian's Academy's enrollment is so strict. Only 27 people were recruited from the entire Yunnan province. Then on the first day, they let high-year students eliminate all of us. Then why recruit students at all? They might as well disband. Sun Qian's eyes lit up. So the bracelets aren't important at all? At least not as important as she said. I looked toward the front hall. The so-called welcoming ceremony is just to beat us down a little, to suppress the arrogance of all these geniuses. Whoever sees through the rules first can escape first. Wang Wen no longer hesitated and took off his bracelet. Sun Qian threw hers away as well. Climb. A courtyard wall 4 or 5 meters high was nothing to spiritualists. We pushed off and quickly climbed out of the Spirit Investigation Bureau. Then we disappeared into the night. 20 minutes later, Yu Qinghan led her people into the back courtyard. Li Xiang had already arrived and explained the matter of the new member assessment clearly to the Spirit Investigation Bureau. One young man checked the traces near the wall. They climbed over and ran. Yu Qinghan lowered her head and looked at the 4 smart bracelets on the ground. Her expression gradually turned ugly. Behind them, the young officer was still puzzled. When did newly joined Spirit Investigation Bureau members have an assessment like this? Officer Liu, however, lowered his head in thought. A high-year student looked at Yu Qinghan. Sister Yu, should we contact the General Bureau? If we activate the city's Sky Eye system, we can find them very quickly. Yu Qinghan looked up and glared at him. You might not feel embarrassed, but I do. So many high-year students chasing 4 freshmen. It's already bad enough we failed to catch them. And now you want to use Shanjing's Sky Eye system? If word gets out, how are we supposed to keep our dignity? She threw the 4 bracelets into her bag. Withdraw. Go clean up those fools who didn't take off their bracelets. Everyone turned and left. Yu Qinghan walked at the very back and muttered under her breath. Little brat. How dare you say senior is a gangster? You'd better not let me catch you. For days later, Shangjing, Songyun Mountain. Wearing hiking clothes, we stood before a huge stone tablet. All 4 of us were dressed like middle-aged tourists. Hats, sunglasses, fake mustaches. I had even specially asked a makeup artist to add 2 crow's feet to my face. But at this moment, the area beside the stone tablet was filled with high-year students from Tian's Academy. Yu Qinghan leaned against the stone tablet and looked at the fake mustache on my face, laughing so hard she couldn't straighten her back. Ha ha ha. Little Junior, that outfit of yours. You're 48 this year, aren't you? I stood in place, saying nothing. My heart had gone completely cold. After escaping from the Spirit Investigation Bureau, we found a makeup shop. We specifically spent money on disguises. Then we bought several sets of hiking clothes and pretended to be tourists. Along the way, we had been as careful as possible. No cars. No use of spiritual power. No stopping in crowded places. We separated during the day, then regrouped at night. For 4 whole days, we finally arrived at the destination on the bracelet map from memory. But the problem was, where was the academy? Where was my huge Tian's Academy? There was no school gate, no teaching buildings, only Songyun Mountain, and a group of seniors who had been waiting here in advance. After laughing enough, Yu Qinghan walked up to me. She pulled off my hat in one move. Then she grabbed the fake mustache. Rip. Hiss. I grimaced from the pain. Gentler. It's glued on so firmly. How is that my fault? Yu Qinghan waved the fake mustache in her hand. All right, stop looking like you've been scammed out of your entire fortune. Tian's Academy really isn't here. But this is the final destination. I froze. Then we passed. Congratulations. Yu Qinghan extended her hand with a smile. You four arrived first. And completely uninjured. The nerves I had kept tense for 4 days finally relaxed. Where exactly is the academy? What about the other freshmen? You didn't eliminate all of them, did you? Yu Qinghan blinked. Guess. Next, we were arranged to stay in temporary tents at the foot of the mountain. Yu Qinghan didn't reveal anything more. She only told us to rest for 3 days. After the welcoming ceremony for all the other freshmen ended, she would take us to the academy together to register. I lay on a camp bed and closed my eyes, sorting through the information I had gained along the way. It was just as I had guessed. From the beginning, this welcoming ceremony had never truly intended to eliminate anyone. It was purely meant to torment us. Anyone who could receive an invitation from Tian's Academy was one of the top geniuses in their local region. A group of people entered school carrying arrogance. If they weren't knocked down a bit beforehand, wouldn't they tear a hole through the sky after entering campus? What Tian's Academy wanted was for us to understand one thing. You were a genius back home. But here, you are not. At least, not for now. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. At noon on the 3rd day, I was pressing Sui Xiao to the ground and beating him. Do you yield? Smack. No. Sui Xiao covered his face with both hands and continued stubbornly. If you have the ability, don't use your abilities. Let's fight purely with our bodies. Smack. I slapped him again. Why shouldn't I use them? If you meet an enemy you can't beat in the future, are you going to tell him? Even though you're strong, I'm not convinced. If you have guts, don't use abilities? That's different. How is it different? Chenong. Sun Qian was pulling at me from the side. Forget it. Stop hitting him. She was sweating from all the pulling. Wang Wan, meanwhile, stood beside a group of high-year students, watching with great interest. No one wanted to break up the fight. There was nothing to be done. Sui Xiao was too hateable. That attitude of looking down on everyone made even the high-year students want to beat him up. The cause of the incident was simple. During lunch, someone mentioned the battle at the airport. That person said that without me, this batch of Yunnan freshmen would have been wiped out on the first day. Sui Xiao immediately refused to accept that. In his opinion, I was indeed strong. But he wasn't weak either. If not for his thunder restraining Zhao Ku, I might not have been able to beat Zhao Ku. When a few seniors heard that, they immediately started stirring things up. If you two want to know who's stronger, just fight once. Sui Xiao got worked up. He came straight to find me. The problem was, when he found me, I was in the bathroom. At the time, the conversation had roughly gone like this. Chenong, I think you're not good enough. Come out and fight me. Are you sick? I'm using the bathroom. Then I'll wait until you come out. Get lost. Promise to fight me, and I'll leave. Fine. I'll fight you. Can you please get out first? At the time, I had truly collapsed mentally. Who could tolerate someone blocking the door and constantly challenging them while they were in the bathroom? So after I came out, the first thing I did was beat Sui Xiao up. Do you yield? Smack. No. Smack. Still not. If you dare, don't use Azure Emperor. Smack. Why should I? Just as I was about to continue, someone outside the crowd shouted, Stop fighting. Sister Yu is back. Everyone turned around at the same time. Several cars were slowly driving toward the foot of the mountain. I stopped and stood up from Sui Xiao. This kid was lucky. If he dared block the door during my most vulnerable moment again, I'd make sure he couldn't even understand how to use the bathroom. The vehicle stopped. Yu Qinghan got out of the first car. When she saw Sui Xiao in the middle of the crowd with a bruised and swollen face, she immediately became interested. Oh, what's going on here? Isn't the welcoming ceremony already over? Sui Xiao climbed up from the ground with a dark expression. He didn't answer. I looked toward the vehicles behind her. If I wasn't wrong, the rest of the Yunnan freshmen should be inside. Whoosh. The doors opened one after another. Figures got out from inside. I watched for a few seconds and fell silent. Then I carefully identified them for a while. Senior, are these really the freshmen who were on the same plane as us? Each of them had bruised and swollen faces. Some walked with a limp. Some had eyes so swollen only a slit remained. There were even two supporting each other, their walking posture looking as though they had just learned to stand upright. How were these geniuses? They were clearly a group of wounded people fished out from the scene of a group fight. Yu Qinghan ignored me and clapped twice. Assemble. At her command, all the freshmen moved quickly. Even though they were injured, their formation speed was still not slow. Martial schools in the Celestial Empire implemented militarized management. Assembling and lining up had long since become instinct. 27 freshmen formed a square formation. Yu Qinghan came to the stone tablet. The ring on her right ring finger flashed. A triangular card appeared in her hand. Its shape was exactly the same as our admission letters. The only difference was the material. Our cards were entirely gold. Hers looked as if it had been carved from some kind of jade. Yu Qinghan shook the card. Does it look familiar? The invitation letters you received are actually also Tian's Academy student identity cards. After you officially enroll, the Political Education Office will replace them for you. Don't lose the one you currently have. It isn't only proof of identity. It's also the key to entering and leaving the academy. After saying that, she pressed the jade card against the stone tablet. Buzz. The originally ordinary stone tablet suddenly erupted with intense light. Space rippled like the surface of water. An illusory gate appeared before us. Yu Qinghan stepped in first. Come on. I'll take you to register at the academy. The high-year students filed in. The remaining freshmen subconsciously looked toward me. After the battle at the airport, they had already faintly regarded me as the core of the group. I did not hesitate. I was the first to follow. The instant I stepped into the spatial gate, a mysterious force enveloped my entire body. Immediately after, the world spun. I felt as if I had been thrown into an ocean. Giant waves wrapped around my body, rolling me over non-stop. 1 second, my head was facing up. The next second, my head was facing down. It was also like being stuffed into a tumble washer and spun dozens of times. My stomach instantly churned violently. When both feet landed again, I immediately circulated spiritual power and forcibly suppressed the nausea. Ugh! Behind me came a wave of retching sounds one after another. The freshmen who hadn't reacted in time all bent over. Some supported themselves on their knees and vomited. Some hugged trees and vomited. Some had just managed to stand firm when they were knocked down by the people rushing out from behind, then lay on the ground and vomited. The scene was unbearable to look at. I raised my head. A magnificent school gate appeared before my eyes. Tian's Academy. Sui Xiao stood beside me. His face was pale and his lips were tight, yet he still forced himself not to vomit. I had to admit, although this kid deserved a beating, he did have some ability. Yu Qinghan looked at the vomiting freshman all over the ground, a satisfied smile appearing on her face. She had gone through this back then too. Now it was finally her turn to watch others suffer. To be precise, Tian's Academy is not located in any region of Blue Star. The space we are currently in was transformed from the ability of a senior space-type expert of the Celestial Empire after his death. Because that senior has already passed away, the spatial passage lost active control, so there will be a little turbulence. She looked at the people still vomiting and smiled even more happily. It's fine. After vomiting a few more times, you'll get used to it. Everyone's faces turned green. A few more times? Once had nearly made them vomit bile. All right. Yu Qinghan's tone suddenly became impatient. Stop vomiting. The academy leaders are still waiting for you. No one dared delay. They forcibly suppressed the discomfort in their stomachs and followed her toward the school gate. Tian's Academy's gate was not ornate. There were no dazzling crystals, no exaggerated formations. It was simply vast, heavy, like an ancient city that had endured countless wars and still stood firm. After crossing the school gate, a huge black stone tablet blocked the way ahead. On it were only 2 characters. Tian's. I raised my head and looked. The moment my gaze touched the stone tablet, the scene before my eyes changed abruptly. Boom. Artillery fire tore through the sky. Countless spiritualists charged towards strange, invading creatures. Some held long spears. Some walked through fire. Some had lost a leg, yet still dragged their enemies toward the depths of a rift. The images kept flashing. Men, women, young people, white-haired elders. All of them wore Celestial Empire military uniforms. All of them were fighting. The sounds of slaughter, explosions, and dying roars clearly entered my ears. It was so real that it felt as if I were also standing on the battlefield. They are all graduates of Tian's Academy. Yu Qinghan's voice came from beside me. I turned to look at her. She was gazing up at the stone tablet, and the frivolity in her eyes had already disappeared. In the future, you and I will appear here too. These images come from combat bracelets worn by comrades near them after they graduated and entered dimensional rifts to fight. The illusion-type teachers from the Academy's publicity department engraved the real footage into this stone tablet. Some of them are still alive. Some have already died in battle. If they were lucky, their bodies could be sent back to their hometowns. If they were unlucky, Yu Qinghan paused. Their families couldn't even see their remains. I looked back at the stone tablet. Scenes of battle flashed before my eyes one after another. Yu Qinghan continued. A teacher from the publicity department once said, "Those who carry firewood for the people must not be allowed to freeze in the wind and snow." They fought for the faith in their hearts. Those who come after should remember them. I was somewhat dazed. The Celestial Empire was a very strange country. It had parasites too. Some people fought for power. Some chased profit. Some gnawed away at the foundation of the nation. But whenever this country truly faced a life-or-death crisis, there would always be people who stood up. They shouted of family and country. They shouted of righteousness. Then they calmly marched to their deaths. All for that one sentence. May the Celestial Empire endure forever. From childhood to adulthood, the education we received was very direct. Strengthen the army. Strengthen the army. And still, strengthen the army. Only when the Celestial Empire's spear point was so strong that all enemies fled before it would the families behind us no longer need to wander in displacement. Before, there had always been a thorn in my heart. They risked life and death to protect their loved ones. But what about me? I was an orphan. Who should I fight for? I was willing to fight for the Celestial Empire. Because the country had raised me. The education, resources, and cultivation opportunities one possessed had all been given by the Celestial Empire. I was willing to repay that. But if the day truly came when I had to stake my life, I might not do so without hesitation. Or rather, the people I would risk my life protecting would only be the old director, Sun Yuan, and Sun Qian. Until Pei Chongping found me. Until I saw the combat footage my father left behind. Only then did I understand that the thorn should never have existed in the first place. I was not an orphan. I had a father. And I had a mother. My mother died protecting me. After finding me, my father had even planned to postpone the war and return to see me. Only in the end, he never made it back. I raised my head again. The scene inside the stone tablet happened to change. A man around 30 years old appeared on the battlefield. He wore a tattered military uniform and held a long spear. Before him stood a monster with 4 arms. Behind him lay dozens of corpses belonging to Celestial Empire soldiers. The image shook constantly. The combat bracelet recording this footage should have been worn by a severely wounded soldier. That soldier was moving with great difficulty. Go. Stop fighting. It deliberately left me alive just to lure you over. The soldier's voice was already choked with tears. Why won't you listen to me? You all could have left. Gu Changjun. You dare call yourself a graduate of Tian's Academy? You don't deserve it. You're even less worthy of being our commander. You're leading them to their deaths. Ahead, Gu Changjun drove his spear through the 4-armed monster's chest. But just before the monster died, it suddenly counterattacked. Uffed. Its sharp claws pierced through Gu Changjun's abdomen. Blood instantly gushed out. Gu Changjun staggered back. He lowered his head and glanced at his abdomen, then kicked away the monster's corpse. We were already deep behind enemy lines alone. Where else could we go? These beasts actually played tactics with me. He clutched his wound and walked toward the viewpoint. Immediately after, a blood-stained hand reached over. Gu Changjun helped the severely wounded soldier up and removed his combat bracelet. Don't cry. It's fine if we die together. When our people fight their way here, collecting the bodies will be convenient. Commander, shut up. Facing the combat bracelet, Gu Changjun tidied his messy hair. He even deliberately wiped the blood from his face. But the more he wiped, the dirtier it became. 9 years. When I first enrolled, a senior told me that after graduation, we could personally choose a piece of combat footage to record into the Tian stone tablet. I've been choosing for 9 years. I always wanted to find a cooler-looking one. He looked back. In the distance, another squad of monsters was approaching. Gu Changjun smiled. Looks like I don't need to choose anymore. This one will do. He put the combat bracelet on himself. This can also serve as a reminder for future juniors. If you're afraid of death, don't accept missions deep behind enemy lines. If you accept one, don't think about coming back alive. He gripped his spear tightly. His abdomen was still bleeding, but the hand holding the spear was frighteningly steady. Gu Changjun faced the camera and laughed broadly. Remember this. I am Gu Changjun, one of Science Academy's top 10 outstanding graduates. 9 years in the army. 1,782,251 heads taken by my spear. He raised his spear and pointed toward the charging monsters. I am insanely brave. Boom. Spiritual power erupted completely from within him. Gu Changjun turned and charged toward the monster squad. One man, one spear, no retreat. In the final image, only his roar remained. Gu Changjun of Science is here. You beasts! Who's coming first to receive death?